All right, welcome. This is Orion Rising. I'm your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. All right, check this out, check this out, check this out. Welcome. It's Friday night, Law of One. Trying to get my camera straight here. Sorry about that. All right, welcome. Let me turn off this overlay here. Friday night, Law of One, right? Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, check this out, check this out. Let me turn this overlay off, put myself up in full screen. I'm still not in on the camera exactly where I want to be. I guess that's close enough. I'm not quite dead center here. Let me see if I can put myself a little bit more dead center. There we go. The camera might be tilted up a little bit too far. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Denise, welcome. Tag everybody, get them in here. Denise, you're already doing that. Thank you. Get everybody in here. Where are they at? Right. So welcome aboard. It's Friday night, the Law of One. I'm a couple of seconds late today. I was running around. I had to go to the restroom right at the last second and turn something on for my mother to watch on TV. And because of that, I was just a tad late, right? So is Celeste in here? Welcome, Celeste. Yeah, Cassie's in here. Welcome, Cassie, right? Okay. So if you don't say anything in the chat, all I see is numbers. I don't know if you guys are in here. So get everybody in here, right? Share this out. Get everybody in here. All right. It's Friday night. The Law of One. We are on session, what did I say? We were on 78. Session 78. I have it primed. Let me look at my phone here. Session 78. And we were on question 20. I backed up to question 17 so we could get started. And I was backing up to question 20 as it was. So we'll be all right there. We'll get started. So, yeah, crazy. Sorry, I was running a little helter-skelter there at the end trying to get caught up because I was a little bit late getting my mother in the shower and then getting lunch. And so because of that, kind of threw me off a little bit. Right, Brooke, welcome. Welcome. Okay, so like I said, share this out. We'll do a sound check here, and we'll get started on the Law of One, and we'll move right into that straight away. Okay, so let me go ahead and do a sound check. I know the sound's probably too low, so I'll start playing it in all. I'll turn the sound up right here. You guys let me know if you can hear it okay, and we'll start right here, all right? So session 78, question number 17.
78.17 Questioner. Why do the densities have the qualities that they have? You have named the densities with respect to their qualities, this density being that of the next, the fourth density being that of love, etc. Can you tell me why these qualities exist in that form? Is it possible to answer this question at all? Ra, I am Ra. It is possible. 78.18 Questioner. Would you please answer that? Ra, I am Ra. The nature of the vibratory range peculiar to each quantum of the octave is such that the characteristics of it may be described with the same certainty with which you perceive a color with your optical apparatus if it is functioning properly. 78.19 Questioner. So the original, the first evolution then was planned by the logos, but the first distortion was not extended to the product. At some point this first distortion was extended and the first service to self polarity emerged. Is this correct, and if so, could you tell me the history of this process and emergence? Ra, I am Ra. As proem, let me state that the logoi always conceived of themselves as offering free will to the sublogoi in their care. The sublogoi had freedom to experience and experiment with consciousness, the experiences of the body, and the illumination of the spirit. That having been said, we shall speak to the point of your query. The first logos to instill what you now see as free will, in the full sense, in its sublogoi came to this creation due to contemplation in depth of the concepts or possibilities of conceptualizations of what we have called the significators. The logos posited the possibility of the mind, the body, and the spirit as being complex. In order for the significator to be what it is not, it then must be granted the free will of the creator. This set in motion a quite lengthy, in your terms, series of logoi improving or distilling this seed thought. The key was the significator becoming a complex. 78.20 Questioner.
Okay, so Raw doesn't specifically get into the details of where and when that happened, okay? So the creator, this is, if you read I don't remember exactly, I think it was the Book of Truth, the Scroll of Truth from the Dead Sea Scrolls it was, because I just reread this the other day. And it was in there that you hear them saying error created the human race, and error being a female deity figure that created the human race because she decided that she could create just like the creator and created the human race, right? So that is the sub logos creating another sub logos. So when people hear that, they go, well, so that must be the devil, or it must be the error must be the devil, or error must be Lilith here on earth. And that's not exactly what Ra was saying here. If you listen to what Ra was saying, the creator of the universe created this place and then gave complete carte blanche to the next logos down. So when the universe was created, the creator of the universe created the universe and then allowed free will from the beginning to do whatever that you wanted to do at the lower levels, at every lower level. So you have the logos creating the sub logos, or the creator creating the logos. Then you had the entities in that logos creating a sub logos and a sub logos, and all the way down to this logos, which is the ecosystem. A logos is an ecosystem like the Matrix. Okay. So from the beginning, there was free will. Do you see? Because they were allowed to have the free will to create free will. Do you understand that? So from the beginning of the creation, when the creator populated the creation with individuals, from that point on, they had the creative ability and the free will to do anything that they wanted to do at that point, going on down, all the way down to here. So that is why we say that we have free will, that our reality, or our focus, determines our reality. And this is why in the Bible it says, what you sow on the earth, I shall too sow in heaven. What you reap on the earth, I shall too reap in heaven. That doesn't mean as above, so below. That's a corruption. That entire idea and concept of saying as above, so below, as without, so within, is a caste system that is set up down here in the third dimension, so that you believe that God is the almighty creator and that you are not equal in any way, nor that you are God, because it gets you used to the idea that you're not in charge down here and there is somebody else, a king, a monarch, that is in charge, and you are beneath that person. Okay, so that is the corruption of the free will mechanism. The free will mechanism and the potentiation of that mechanism is in fact this place having complete free will from the beginning, from the top, from the very first creation. And Ra just said that. So I'm going to rewind that. This is why I rewound to where I was, because I wanted to start with this here today. So I'm going to rewind that and allow Ra to say that again before we go to the next question, because Dawn is now going to get asking for specifics. Okay, so let me pull this back here to about, I think here should be far enough back. Let's see.
This is correct. 78.17 Questioner, why do the densities have the qualities that they have? You have named the densities with respect to their qualities, this density being that of the next, the fourth density being that of love, etc. Can you tell me why these qualities exist in that form? Is it possible to answer this question at all? Ra, I am Ra. It is possible. 78.18 Questioner, would you please answer that? Ra, I am Ra. The nature of the vibratory range peculiar to each quantum of the octave is such that the characteristics of it may be described with the same certainty with which you perceive a color with your optical apparatus if it is functioning properly. 78.19 Questioner.
Okay, here we go, right? So pay attention now, and I'll talk about it again. Pay attention to what Ra is saying here.
So the original, the first evolution then was planned by the logos, but the first distortion was not extended to the product. At some point this first distortion was extended and the first service to self polarity emerged. Is this correct, and if so, could you tell me the history of this process and emergence? Ra, I am Ra. As proem, let me state that the logoi always conceived of themselves as offering free will to the sub-logoi in their care.
Okay, so that statement right there in the beginning says that all the logos always saw themselves as having the ability to offer free will to the sub-logos in their care. Okay, so literally just that statement in the very beginning right there tells you from the creation of the universe. It was already instilled in the creation of the universe when the creator populated the universe with all of the souls that are now in the universe. It was already in the system at that point that those people those souls, which we are, had total carte blanche and free will to do anything that they wanted to do, including acknowledge that they had free will and build societies and structures and sub-logi, matrices, if you will, with free will. And that is in the system, inherent in the system. So you have free will. Everyone has free will, and that cannot be usurped. Why? Because it is inherent in the system from the creator. It's not an accident. It's not something that someone owns and they gave to you. That's what they like to tell you on this earth. Your freedom is a gift that we can take away from you whenever we want. Not true. The only thing they can do to you is arrest you, chain you, enslave you, and beat your physical body. That's all they can do. They can murder you and kill you and rape you and do damage to your physical body, but that does not change the fact that your soul is free. There is no captors, aliens who are capturing your soul, who are in charge of a penal colony that you are on, that some aliens know how to zap your soul. This is what they're actually propagating in the ancient aliens world and have been for about 10 years now. That, we were created and they are even controlling our immortal souls and they zap our immortal souls, so we're the forgetting. That's not what happens. All of that is inherent in the system from the beginning by the creator. Okay, and you're hearing that being said right there. So let's continue. And if you guys have any questions, let me know, right? So hi to anybody that I missed. Annette, welcome. Jamie, welcome. Denise, welcome. I don't know if I missed anybody else. I apologize if I did miss anybody else as we were going here. But hi, say hi to me in the chat so I know you're here. Otherwise, I just see numbers. Joanne, welcome. Okay, so literally in what Ra just said, that the creator granted free will from the beginning of the creation. Okay, so you're not owned by anyone in 3D. You're not owned by anyone in 4D. You're not owned by anyone in 5D. There is nobody that is a slave master in 3D or a slave master in 4D that's zapping your immortal soul. Okay, all of that is a lie that propagates the caste system down here for your thought process so that you enslave yourself to their will because you believe by them gaslighting you, you believe that they're in charge, that they created us, that they formulated us, and that they own us, and that they own the planet. So they want you, this is why they're waiting to allow you to believe that there are UFOs and aliens. First, they have to get you convinced that you're owned by aliens, and then they will take on the personification of that alien and literally then go, we are your slave masters. Because they don't want you finding out and expanding your consciousness to the possibility that there are people in the universe besides the ones on here on this planet before you have the idea that, oh, by the way, we own you still. Because if you don't, then you're going to say, well, and then who should we listen to? You're nobody, because we're just a lowly planet that's a backwoods planet, a bunch of bumpkins, and there are people out there that have technology to fly from planet to planet in space. So therefore, you guys are not in charge. And then they go, well, truly we're not, and there's these aliens that are in charge. And then they have this idea of rolling out the technology that they've been hiding from everybody so they can go, never fear, we actually have this real technology that is equal and surpassing theirs. And we own this place. That's why they want to roll it out the way they want to roll it out. They don't want you to know any of that before they're ready to put themselves in the position of the hierarchy in that expansion of the global consciousness. Okay, so that's what's going on there. So from the creation, when the creator created the universe or the multiverses, however you know that, inherent in the logos, the matrix of that, when the creator populated it with souls, was your free will, my free will, and everyone else's free will. Know that. Remember it. Don't ever forget it, and know that. The only thing that they can do to you is beat up your pain body, imprison your pain body, destroy your pain body, but you are for forever, and they cannot capture you. They cannot control you. They cannot zap your memory. They cannot convince you of something that is not something that is true. The only thing they can do if you slip out of body and you're not supposed to be out of body yet because you signed a contract and you have a near-death experience and you go out there, they're going to say, it's not your time. It's time for you to go to back. And Penny, who has had that conversation, had that thing happen to her, just said, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. And she's one of those people that found out what happens when it's not your time. They're like, no, sorry, you got to go back. And then they shove you back into your body. That is not a slave master that owns you. That is not someone who is imprisoning you. You signed that contract to be in this body that you're in currently and to have the life that you're having. You did that. So that's why I tell people this isn't happening to you. This is happening for you. Okay. So let's continue and let Ra continue. So Ra stated that from the beginning of the creation, there was free will. And let's continue with that right here, because this is important, right? Now listen.
The sublogoi had freedom to experience and experiment with consciousness, the experiences of the body, and the illumination of the spirit. That having been said, we shall speak to the point of your query. The first logos to instill what you now see as free will, in the full sense, in its sublogoi came to this creation due to contemplation in depth of the concepts or possibilities of conceptualizations of what we have called the significators. The logos posited the possibility of the mind, the body, and the spirit as being complex. In order for the significator to be what it is.
Yes, Reese, I'm seeing your comments. Did you make a comment and ask a question and I missed that? Right. Hi, Reese. He says, is anyone seeing my comments? Yes. Yes, we are. Did you ask a question and I missed it while I was talking? I don't see you asking a question anywhere. Reese, if you were asking a question, please restate the question, but we are seeing your comments. Is it that you're not seeing everyone else's comments? Because if you're not, then it might be that you just clicked on a thing where you can't see, because sometimes for whatever reason, Facebook doesn't have all the comments come into if you're someplace where it was shared. I don't know why it does that, right? But otherwise, no, we can see you, brother. So you're all right. You're here. Okay. So like I said, I apologize if you asked a question and I didn't see it. Please restate that. So let's continue with this, okay?
Is not. It then must be granted the free will of the creator. This set in motion a quite lengthy, in your terms, series of logoi improving or distilling this seed thought. The key was the significator becoming a complex. 78.20 Questioner. Then our particular logos, when it created its own particular creation, was at some point far down the evolutionary spiral of the experiment with the significator becoming what it was not, or in effect, creating the polarity that we strive for in third density, and, therefore was, I am assuming, primarily concerned in the design of the archetypes, in designing them in such a way so as they would create the acceleration of this polarization. Is this in any way correct? Ra, I am Ra. We would only comment briefly. It is generally correct. You may fruitfully view each logos and its design as the creator experiencing itself. The seed concept of the significator being a complex introduces two things. Firstly, the creator against creator in one sub-logos in what you may call dynamic tension.
Okay, I'm going to stop right there because Reese just made that comment when we were talking about that. It was either just this Wednesday or it was the Wednesday before that when we were talking about the function of this place. And Reese stated that beautifully when he was saying exactly what Ra just said, that the function of this place is the creator becoming aware of itself in this place. And then I had quoted from Eckhart Tolle, who stated the almost word for word the same years ago, probably, I don't know, 3 or 4, maybe, I don't think it was 5 years ago. It was only 3 or 4 years ago in front of a crowd when someone asked, what is the function of the third dimensional reality? And he said that God is becoming aware of itself in this place. And you heard Ra just say that just now. Okay, so let's continue here. So through us, and this is what Reese went on to say in that moment, through us, hi to everybody that just came in, Anna is here, welcome. There's Deborah, my sister. My sister's here. Welcome, sister, in real life, my sister. So literally to further that, right? We and our experiences. This is what Reese said when we were in the off-camera chat. He had said this: we are the experiencers because we are we are the creator, and through us, the creator is becoming aware of itself in this place through our experiences. Okay. So I don't know if Ra's going to get further into this right here, but that is the actual thinking of everybody who is enlightened. And Reese brought that up very eloquently. And if you guys missed the Wednesday conversation that we had, you should let us know and tap into us and come on. We do a Zoom call where we talk on Wednesday at 3 p.m. West Coast America time, where it's not being filmed and it's not on camera. It's just in the Zoom meeting that I put on for everybody to be able to talk in there and not have to worry. And that way it's not just in the chat here. For those of you people listening around the world on the MP3 broadcast, if you guys have access to Messenger, you can message us and I can send it to you. If not, you can get my email and I can send you it. And then you can just log into Zoom, and you don't have to download Zoom. You can actually just log in online to zoom.com and then hit join. And I can give you the password and the Zoom meeting code that you can come in if you guys want to come in and talk. You don't have to turn your camera on. And sometimes people come in like Joanne did one time, and she wasn't talking and she was typing in the chat, and we were just reading stuff from there. So those of you who are around the world that may not like Facebook or YouTube, and you're listening on a the podcast MP3, but you want to ask me questions or someone else that might possibly be in there that could answer your questions, and you don't want to be on Messenger, or you're not on Messenger to be in our Law of One class chat, you could always come into the Zoom call and ask questions, or you could email me directly or whatever you guys need to do. Okay, so let's continue, okay?
Secondly, the concept of free will, once having been made fuller by its extension into the sublogoi known as mind/body/spirit complexes, creates and recreates and continues to create as a function of its very nature. 78.21 Questioner, you stated previously that the choice that is made in this density, third density, is the axis upon which the creation turns. Could you expand on your reason for making that statement? Ra, I am Ra. This is a statement of the nature of creation as we speak to you. 78.22 Questioner, I did not understand that. Could you say that in a different way? Ra, I am Ra. As you have noted, the creation of which your logos is a part is a protean entity which grows and learns upon a macrocosmic scale. The logos is not a part of time. All that is learned from experience in an octave is, therefore, the harvest of that logos and is further the nature of that logos. The original logos as experience was, viewed in space/time, small, its experience now, more. Therefore we say, as we now speak to you at this space/time, the nature of creation is as we have described. This does not deny the process by which this nature has been achieved, but merely ratifies the product. 78.
Okay, now, literally Raw here is stating that the logos that we're a part of is outside of time. Okay, so literally that means the Milky Way galaxy, when you leave the third dimension and you move to the fourth dimension, you're no longer bound by the constraints of time that we have here. That was literally what was just stated there. So you have to realize that. People think that time being linear the way it is here works this way in the universe everywhere. It does not. Okay, it only works in third dimensional reality. So first dimension, second dimension, and third dimension have time. You only perceive time in the third dimension when you're self-aware, okay, as a human in this case on Earth. Then you are perceive time. Animals don't normally perceive time. They don't sit there and have birthdays. They don't say I was born in September. They don't have the concept of months. They don't have that. They just live by the cycle of the planet. And they don't even, no one says, how old are you? When were you born? And so there is none of that because they're not self-aware. They become self-aware. And when they become self-aware, they don't make up all these ideas that we have in third dimension, because not very many people are self-aware yet in their reality. So when they become self-aware and they start thinking like that, they start to contemplate the self. And then when they die in that life, then on this planet, they become a human. And everybody here is in that same boat. You're veiled, but you're self-aware. And then we have all these concepts that we put together, the time and people trying to figure out when was I born. It used to be, people would say I was born in springtime or I was born in summer. Now it's when were you born and when's your birthday, and when we celebrate those concepts even more, and we make that a thing. And most of that's driven by money and selling products to you, anyways, right? The holidays are as well. And no matter what country you're in, there's a holiday almost every single month in every holiday where they can charge you money for products for you to decorate your house or something like that. So that's driven for the monetary gain of people who are in self-serving and believe that they own this place. Okay. All right. So let's continue here.
8.23 Questioner, after third density, in our experience, Social memory complexes are polarized positively and negatively. Is the interaction between social memory complexes of opposite polarity equivalent, but on a magnified scale, to the interaction between mind/body/spirit complexes of opposite polarity? Is this how experience is gained as a function of polarity difference at the fourth and fifth densities? Ra, I am Ra. No. 78.24 question.
Starkey Ra.
This is a hard question just to ask. But what is the function or what is the value experientially of the formation of positive and negative social memory complexes, of the separation of the polarities at that point rather than the allowing for the mixing of mind/body/spirit complexes of opposite polarity at the higher densities? Ra, I am Ra. The purpose of polarity is to develop the potential to do work. This is the great characteristic of those, shall we say, experiments which have evolved since the concept of the choice was appreciated. Work is done far more efficiently and with greater purity, intensity, and variety by the voluntary searching of mind/body/spirit complexes for the lessons of third and fourth densities. The action of fifth density is viewed in space/time.
Right, Joanne says. Yeah, today I was just thinking, who decided that we have 30, 31, 28, 29 days in the months? It's just weird. Actually, that was decided by a couple of Roman emperors. We used to be, we're on the what is left over of the Gregorian calendar, which is now the Latin calendar, the Roman calendar, the solar calendar. So originally we were on, for everyone, we were on a lunar calendar, and there was 13 months, all equal 28 days. And if you look up that calendar, you'll see that the first of the month always started on a Monday. Okay. And the 28th of a month was always on a Sunday. So every day of the month was the same day every month, all the time. So it was easy to know what day it was by the date, or to know what date it was by the day. So if you memorized Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or what they were called originally, then you actually know that. So then what happened was they switched to the Gregorian calendar, and it changed everything. I was just looking at George Washington's birthday because tomorrow is George Washington's birthday. So I was looking at when George Washington was born, and he was actually born in a completely different date, but they were on the older calendar. And when they switched to the Gregorian calendar, his date of birth, month, day, and year changed drastically. You should look that up. Okay. So when we switched to the Gregorian calendar, the Roman emperors changed the months because they wanted the month to be longer days than the other ones. So they started taking days from one of the other months and putting it into their calendar. So you have like Julius Caesar and the like for July, Augustus, August. They were pulling days from one of the other months to add to their calendar day to make it longer, their month longer, and just moving days over. And when they got done doing that, the 13th month or whatever month it was, that I think it was the 13th month that they stole it all from, that the calendar only had like less than 14 days left in it. So then they just took all of those and just kind of spread them around to the other calendars or to the other months and just threw that one out. So that's why we have 28, 29, 30, and 31 days. All the months with 31 are Roman calendar months that they were shifting the days to up to 31. And they stopped there and didn't go past that. But that's why we have the months the way we do. Not a joke. You can look that up. It's part of history. Okay. So they decided to do it because, Peter, welcome. They decided to do that because they were greedy and they wanted their ego, full of ego. And I'm Julius Caesar and I need to have more days that are in my month than anyone else. And then everybody who followed, the Caesars who followed, did that until they had, hardly any days left. And then somebody said, we need to stop doing that because pretty soon we're going to have 110 days in 1 month and another month's going to have 5 days in it. So they just stopped it, kind of spread them out and made them, the rest of them fit so they could get rid of that other last month. That's what they did. You can look that up. It's actual history. So it was not done for pragmatism. or pragmatic reasons. It wasn't done for efficiency. It was done out of greed. It was done out of ego. And that's how we ended up where we were. But they also worshiped the sun god and not the lunar god. So they didn't want to be on the lunar calendar. They wanted to be on the solar calendar. So they changed it to the Gregorian calendar, what we call the Gregorian calendar. And now we have what's left over of the Gregorian calendar, which is a Romanized version of the Gregorian calendar, is what we use today. The Hebrews still use their calendar, especially Hasidic Jews, still use the calendar that they used back when Moses was alive and before that. So by their calendar, we're in like the year like 3,500 or something right now. I don't quote me on the exact number. I don't need anybody sending me emails that are Hebrews and yelling at me because I don't know enough about your guys' religion to know what the date is today. Okay. So, but it's completely different than what we have now. Right. But it's still comparable when you look at things. It's comparable, but yeah, they changed everything because of greed and because of money and because of power. Okay. So, all right, let's continue here. Let me pull that down, right? I have left that overlay up, Joanne, that you were talking, right? So Penny says, Leo, so doesn't it matter which polarity that we are, just as we do our jobs the way we are asked? I'm not quite sure. You might be a little bit more specific with me. Doesn't it matter which polarity? Are you talking about in service to others and in service to self? It matters for you. If that's what you're talking about, if I'm wrong, please state that and I'll correct. If you're talking about your polarity as far as whether you're in service to self or in service to others, ultimately, everything serves the all. However, for your personal individual ascension, it does matter wholeheartedly, because that matters for everyone wholeheartedly, because if you're opposite, say if you're in service to others, then you're going to be helping people. You're going to be dealing with people on a different level. You care about people and you're trying to assist them in some way, even if it's just by being a nice person. The other side of the coin, you're trying to take advantage of people, enslave them, use them, control them, manipulate them for your pleasure, for your own gain. And that changes who you become in your developmental state as you're moving up in your ascension. And the only place that truly matters is halfway through the sixth density, halfway through the sixth dimension. That is the true purgatory. That is the true hell. You, if you're in service to self, cannot move past that place, no matter what you want to think about yourself. If you're self-serving, you are designed in that aspect to no longer be able to function and to advance. You will literally hit a blockade and you will stay there for all of eternity and as long as you want to stay there. Or at some point you realize that, become self-aware on a higher plane of existence there and realize this is purgatory. I cannot advance from this place ever. So I can rule in hell or I can then ascend to heaven. And after eventually everyone who is stuck there long enough says, what do I got to do to get out of here? Then the universe basically gives you the knowledge. All you have to do is change and become in service to others. And you can't fool the universe. So you can't go, okay, I pretend. Wink, wink, I'll be a good guy. And when I get past this point, I'm going to switch back. You cannot do that because it just does. That's not how the universe works. So then you have to repent your ways. That's a nautical term. Go back, but you don't have to descend all the way back down and start over. You just then have to decide, I am no longer self-serving. I am now in service to others. And unfortunately, you're in a place of everyone is self-serving. So you're going to get brutalized and raped and murdered and all these things over and over, which is happening there anyways. And then you will switch to literally be removed from that place of evil existence into halfway through the sixth density on the side of in service to others, and you will actually begin your journey again, literally at that equal station there. So you don't lose ground and have to come all the way back up. You literally switch sides and then start moving forward. And you can't, from that point on, you don't have free will to be evil anymore unless you lower your vibration to go back down below that cap. Okay, so you have free will to do that if you like. If you want to then say, well, I want to whatever, come all the way down to the third dimension and start over and go through that on the evil side again, you can. If you then want to start over and come down on the side of being in service to others and start over and go through that whole shebang again, you can. But you cannot ascend any further being evil, because it was never designed to go that far. People down here don't get that concept, and evil people are like, no, our God, the devil, is equal to your God, and they sit on two mountaintops. Just not true. It's only equal in your mind, and it's only equal down here in your personification. Hopefully that was what you were referring to. Let me scroll down now and find out if it was something different, Penny. So it's vital for yourself. But anything that you do in this place serves the all by doing it. So people that are committing mass murder or rape and pillage, they serve because people see that, people are exposed to it, people are affected by it, and it helps polarize people to make a choice of either being good or evil, or being in service to others or in service to self. Okay. Right, yeah. Celeste said the Holy Roman Empire made sure the calendar stuck. Yes, absolutely, because that's why I was saying we're in the Romanized version of it, because the Roman Catholic Church, the Roman Church, when they became Christianized, they made that Gregorian calendar stick and exactly the way it is, and evolved it to exactly the way it is today. Right. Hi, Celeste. By the way, I don't know if I said hi to you when you popped in. Okay, so let me see if you guys have any other questions. So hopefully, thank you. Penny said that answered her question. So it is vital for you to choose. That's what you're supposed to do here. Choose a path. As you become self-aware, before you gain much knowledge in the ascension, you will choose whether you're in self-serving or whether you're in service to others. And if you don't, then you don't really get many downloads. Maybe I should have clarified this a long time ago. That was a very valid question, Penny. So people who say, I'm not getting any downloads, I don't understand what's going on. We work with them first to show them that they actually are, they just aren't aware of it. And then if you get stuck, we tell you you're in your own way. Part of being in your own way is you're indecisive as to which way you want to go. So if you're indecisive into which way you want to go, the universe doesn't know which package to give you, because most people don't know this. You get downloads when you're in service to others, and you get a package that goes out to people that are in service to others only. Equally, on the other side of that coin, people who are self-serving get downloads, a package of downloads that only go out to self-serving people. So they gain a certain knowledge that is self-serving knowledge about the universe, the matrix, and what is going on here on the evil side, just like you do on the other side. You don't get access and cannot have access to their information, and they don't get access and cannot have access to your information. But the information is mostly similar, but has a different potentiation. Okay, so the potential of the knowledge that you gain is how you will start interpreting that knowledge. And that's why, like Yoda said to Luke, going down once you start down the dark path on the dark side, forever it will dominate your destiny, because it's true on the other side as well. So if you start down the self-serving side and you stay there long enough, it changes the package of downloads and how you perceive it and what knowledge you gain from it. And then it'll perpetuate itself, and it'll keep you on that path, and you'll have to fight harder to get off that path and change your ways. The same thing on the other way. So you can't slip from one to the other. And I accidentally didn't know that I was self-serving. That is a choice that you make. So that no one can. But what they try to do is they try to convince you in this place. Evil people try to convince you by giving you things like they're doing, and they have been doing here in the United States and around the world since COVID, not arresting anybody for looting and pillaging in stores. Unless we don't arrest them unless they steal over $1,000. That's the way it is here in the United States. I don't know about your country. You have to steal over $1,000 of stuff. So then they have to catch you with more than $1,000 with stuff. So if they don't catch you on camera, or they don't catch you with more than $1,000 worth of stuff, then they don't do anything about it. So and then they're giving you but you don't have to pay bail to get out of jail. So if you get arrested, you're right back out. They give you a court date. and they know you're not going to show up, just like they were doing with the illegal aliens, giving them a court date for 5 years from now and letting them run around the country for 5 years, getting comfortable and having families, because we have the anchor baby clause. So if you have a child inside the United States, now the child is an American citizen. So therefore, you're their parents, so you get to stay as well. So that's how they get around it. They make you an American citizen because they tell you, have a child, and you will never have to leave. So so evil people are perpetuating this cycle of madness, and they try to get you convinced, hey, you can go out and steal shit, and we won't care. And because the companies have insurance, and they'll just raise the prices for all the people that are paying for stuff to pay for your theft. And we don't care because we're the rich people and we're making money either way. So we don't care if you, the lowly people, are hurt by prices going up to $50 for a dozen eggs. We don't care. We're going to kill those chickens and drive the prices up because you're going to pay it and we're going to make more money. Do you see? So that whole thing propagates itself, and they're trying to get you in the mindset of doing evil because they know if you do it long enough, then you start getting the downloads and it will dominate your destiny and you'll stay in that mode for the rest of your life. People who are truly in service to self refuse to go down that road. They don't do those things. I'm not going to steal because it's the wrong thing to do. They don't take advantage of that. But those people who haven't made the decision yet of where they are, they'll go, well, why not? Everybody's stealing. So they go and it's, what's it going to hurt? I don't care. I'm just going to do it because I can now. Do you see? And those people haven't made the choice yet, and they start moving down that path. And that is what they're trying to do to you and have been trying to do to you. So they're taking your free will from you without your awareness, and they're dangling a carrot in front of your face and going, there's no consequences. You can do whatever you want. Do the drugs. We'll give them to you for free. Rape and pillage. We're not going to really put you in jail. Rob people. We're not going to kill people. We don't care what you do. Just do it and have fun doing it. And we're not going to do anything to stop you. And that's what they've been doing across the world since COVID started. And specifically in this country, but in almost every country. And when the people polarize from that action against that, then they vote the people out of power that are there, and then they go, no, we're going to start prosecuting those people. And that's what's happening around the world, one country at a time, and like 68 countries now in the last year, last 8 months, 9 months, where we were February, about the last 10 months. 68 countries in the world have changed the people who are in charge of it and started imposing actual laws again, law and order in their countries, and stopping that craziness from happening. Okay. So their actions during COVID repolarized a majority of people around the world to then take back control from these evil people and change the laws back to commonsensical things. And it's still continuing. The Doppler effect is continuing. The domino effect is continuing around the world because of them doing this. So there's an example of the free will being usurped and the polarization and everything serving the all. So literally evil people trying to take control of the world has realigned the world against them. And they figured that they could get past that by stifling the 10% that usually is the only ones who speak out against tyranny, and get everybody else convinced that they're in charge. And it backfired and it didn't work. Okay. So I don't know. Hopefully that is enough to let you know. And then let me see what you guys are talking about so I don't miss anything if you guys are asking questions, right? I guess where I found the problem, Penny said, is that I do not see what the point of all the knowledge is if no one listens and free will trumps all of your knowledge. The point of it is your experience and your journey. That's the point of it. That is what the truth of this place is, your experience. That's what this is here for. Okay? It is for your experience and everyone else's experience to have free will to do these things organically. Okay? So a lot of people get to that same point, Penny, so don't feel bad for thinking that. What's the point of me doing this when the truth is it doesn't really matter? It does matter because it matters for the individual. It matters for you. It matters for everybody around you. It matters for everyone on the planet because it is your development that you're beginning on a journey in this third dimensional reality that is the most beautiful thing you will ever experience, ever. So much so that the creator of the universe is still recreating this and doing it over and over and over and over and over in every possible scenario that it can think of. Okay? Because living is the most beautiful thing. Life is the most beautiful thing. Why? Because you're immortal and you can't die. So because of that, the creator, being immortal and not being able to die, wants to know what it is like to live and die. Because it doesn't know what it's like to live and die. So this scenario is being played out so that we can have those experiences, not just one, but everyone, because of how beautiful they are. Okay? So when you say, what is the point? The point is what you make of it. That's the point. So when people say, what is the reason for life? The life is here for you to give it a reason. Do you understand that? So what is the point if none of this matters? Because you're supposed to make it matter. Okay? God said, I have created a house for you, and you're supposed to make it a home. Do you understand that? So God has created this place for you, and you're supposed to make it your own. You're supposed to then make it whatever you want it to make, and it will please you or it will kill you, depending on what you want it to do for you. It is here for you to do what you want to do. So this place is predisposed to give you what you want if you focus on it, whatever that is. So if you want to be happy, you'll be happy. If you want to be sad, you'll be sad. If you want your life to be miserable, it will be more miserable than you can ever imagine because you're creating it. So what's the point of this place? The point of this place is you can do whatever you want here. So if you want to become a baker and make the best pies ever in the history of the world, you can do that. If you want to be a horticulturist and grow the most beautiful roses that anyone has ever seen, you can do that. If you want to do nothing except sit around and watch TV for the rest of your existence, you can do that. Because this is the place of doing. Do you see? So if you don't want to grow, you don't have to. If you want this to end, you have to grow. So if you don't like this place and you're like, there's no point of me doing it, you can do what Jim Carrey's doing right now and become a hermit. And you could just keep to yourself for all of the rest of this life. No one is going to fault you for that. But you, when you die at the end of this life, you're going to go up with your guides and you're going to be just figuring out what it is that you're going to do in the next life. And there, outside of the bounds of the ego down here and the thinking mind down here, where you're clear of thought, unveiled, you're going to go, I still have things that I want to work on and learn, and you're going to design a new life and come back down here again. Do you see? So the truth is, you also have to realize that you can only speak for yourself and take care of yourself. People too often get caught up in when they wake up, they feel that they need to tell everybody everything and tell them and yell at them and tell them they're asleep. You're asleep, you're asleep, you're asleep. You need to wake up. You can't do that. They're only going to wake up when they want to. So the only thing that you can do is like what I'm doing and all these other people throughout history. I can throw tools out there for you, but I can't make you pick up those tools and use them. But if nobody puts the tools out there for you, the only thing that you get exposed to are the tools of evil, because evil people are putting those tools in front of you constantly, 24/7, to keep you stuck here. Okay? They're going, look, you can steal, you can rape, you can pillage, and if you have enough money, we'll make it go away. Everything that happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Come on down. You can cheat on your spouse, and no one cares, as they have horns on their head and a pitchfork while they're saying it. Come to Vegas where you can gamble, cheat, smoke, drink, have debauchery, do whatever you want. We'll even let you bury a body in the desert if you have to for the right amount of cash, pal. And that's Hotel California. That is Californication by Red Hot Chili Peppers. That's what those songs are about, showing you the way of life of Hollywood, the way of life of California, the way of life, welcome to Hotel California, where you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. Because if you live in this place, you're stuck in this place. So if you live in the flesh, you'll never get off of this rock. Do you see? So the point of this place is your experience, and what you decide that experience is going to be your reality. Okay. So let's see, what is Peter saying here? Will the algorithm, he's talking about the algorithm, right? In prophecy, right? Yeah, Peter was talking about prophecy, and he's right about that prophecy. You guys should watch the video that Peter put out, and he's got it on all of his platforms, where he's talking about prophecy with this Pope, and the things that are happening with the Pope right now, because he's absolutely, and I can't talk about that right now because the algorithm will pick up on me talking about that prophecy, and I'll probably all of a sudden miraculously started having latency problems on my internet, right? Joanne said, right, I'm getting my rucksack and coming to America, right? It's going to be cheap, right? You guys are talking, that's funny, right? So, yeah, right. Penny says, I'm trying. She's talking to Celeste. She said, I'm trying. It's just hard when it's your kids. Yeah, well, Penny, we talked about that. Your mom probably said the same thing about you, and her mom probably said the same thing about her. The problem with becoming awake, the more awake you become, the more you realize how many children there are, not just your own. It's bad enough when it's your own, but the more you become awake and pierce the veil, the more you start looking around and you go, wow, wait a minute, they're all children. And then you go, wow, every head of every state and every government official and every people in every government are like 14 years of age mentally. The entire planet is full of children. So it's always going to be difficult when people around you, when you outgrow them. They're younger than you, and they're on a journey. When you were their age, you were them. And your parents, someone in your life, your grandma, your uncle, aunt, grandfather, mother, father, someone in your life was more awake than you, and they were looking at you and trying to get you back on track, and they were having the same dilemma that you're having now. It's hard when it's your kid. Okay? You have to allow your child, all you can do is give them the tools and allow them to be where they are. They're going to make mistakes because you did, and your mom did, and your grandmother did, and your great-grandmother did. Everyone is going to make mistakes until they wake up and stop making those mistakes. So you have to love your kids. You have to pick them up when they fall. You have to be there to kiss the boo-boo. You have to be there to let them cry and support them. And then you have to allow them, just like when Denise was talking about her sister and their relationship. And I said this about whenever that was, 3 weeks ago now or 4 weeks ago, when I said, you have to love her enough to allow her to be where she is, because it maybe not be her time right now to be as awake as you are. It doesn't mean that your sister is evil, or it doesn't mean your daughter is evil. But if she's chosen to be in service to self, there's nothing you can do about it. The only thing you can do is try to nudge them back on course. You can't force them. The more you try to force them, the more that you're going to polarize them against you. So you have to love them and trust that you did a good enough job raising them that you'll get through to them at some point and they'll come back around. Usually the way the dynamic is, kids start coming into their own when they're teenagers. Then they disappoint their parents because their parents don't think they did a good enough job. And then they get into their 20s and they start having children and they start to change. By the time they get into their 30s and specifically their 40s, when their kids start becoming teenagers, you'll find that they will all of a sudden become you when you were in your 30s and 40s. And then as a grandparent, you'll look back and they'll go, oh my God, I can't believe my kid is out of control. And you can then say to them, you were the exact same way when you were that age. Okay. And I was you when I was their age. And now your wisdom comes into play, and you can tell your daughter, you're going to be okay because I was there and made mistakes too. And you're going to be okay, which is the way that it actually works. You just hope that they learn faster than you did, make less mistakes than you did because of you making mistakes and being able to somehow get that to them so that they don't make the same mistakes you made. But you ultimately can only ever speak for yourself and change you only. You cannot force anyone else to do anything. So you have to love them enough to allow them to have their organic experiences, but still try to help them don't just leave them go and never tell them anything, because that'll make sure they fail for sure, right? So let me see. Let me scroll down. If you guys have any questions, let me know, right? Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and start with the law of one again. Paulie, welcome. I just saw hi, Leonard. Right? Hey, Leonard. Hi, guys. Welcome. So, okay. So I don't know if anybody else has any questions. If I missed something, I apologize, because I'm trying to get like one at a time, right? So hopefully you guys, I didn't miss anybody. If I did, please restate the question. I'm gonna go ahead and let Raw start talking again here, okay?
The same with or without polarity. However, viewed in time/space, the experiences of wisdom are greatly enlarged and deepened due, again, to the voluntary nature of polarized mind/body/spirit action. 78.25 Questioner. Then you are saying, as a result of the polarization in consciousness that has occurred later in the galactic evolution, that the experiences are much more, shall I say, profound or deeper along the two paths. Are these experiences independent of the other path, or must there be action across the potentiated difference between the positive and negative polarity, or is it possible to have this experience simply because of the single polarity? This is difficult to ask. Ra, I am Ra. We would agree. We shall attempt to pluck the gist of your query from the surrounding verbiage. The fourth and fifth densities are quite independent, the positive polarity functioning with no need of negative and vice versa. It is to be noted that in attempting to sway third density mind/body/spirit complexes and choosing polarity, there evolves a good bit of interaction between the two polarities.
Brianna, welcome. Just wanted to say hi just because I saw you there and I didn't want to forget and not say hello. Welcome. All right, let's continue.
In sixth density, the density of unity, the positive and negative paths must needs take in each other, for all now must be seen as love/light and light/love. This is not difficult for the positive polarity, which sends love and light to all other selves. It is difficult enough for service to self-polarized entities that at some point the negative polarity is abandoned. 78.26 Questioner. The choice of polarity, unique circumstance, shall I say, for the archetypical basis for the evolution of consciousness in our particular experience indicates to me that we have arrived, through a long process of the Creator knowing itself, we've arrived at a position of present or maximum efficiency for the design of a process of experience. That design for maximum efficiency is in the roots of consciousness and is the archetypical mind and is a product of everything that has gone before. There are, unquestionably, relatively pure archetypical concepts for the 7 concepts for mind, body, and spirit. I feel that the language that we have for these is somewhat inadequate. However, we will continue to attempt to understand, and that is a poor word also, the foundation for this, and I am hoping that I have laid the foundation with some degree of accuracy in attempting to set a background for the development of the archetypes of our logos. Have I left out anything or made any errors, or could you make any comments on my attempt to lay a background for the construction that our logos used for the archetypes? Ra, I am Ra. Your queries are thoughtful. 78.27 Questioner. Are they accurate, or have I made mistakes? Ra, I am Ra. There are no mistakes. 78.28 Questioner. Let me put it this way. Have I made missteps in my analysis of what has led to the construction of the archetypes that we experience? Ra, I am Ra. We may share with you the observation that judgment is no part of interaction between mind/body/spirit complexes. We have attempted to answer each query as fully as your language and the extent of your previous information allow. We may suggest that if, in perusing this present material, you have further queries, refining any concept, these queries may be asked and, again, we shall attempt adequate rejoinders. 78.29 Questioner. I understand your limitations in answering that. Thank you. Could you tell me how, in first density, wind and fire teach earth and water? Ra, I am Ra.
Okay, so now he's going to move. Now he's moving back to first density, first dimensional reality. So let's continue down this path for a minute, and then we'll jump into that. Okay. So we have the archetypes, and we have to choose which archetype, meaning the major arcana, as far as the being in service to others or in service to self. Okay. So let me retort that, right? So then you get the downloads in those packages, or the packages in the of downloads in that potentiation, being self-serving or being service to others. All of that in this ecosystem serves the all. Okay. And that causes people to do like Penny's doing, saying, well, then why does any of it matter? That does cause the realization of what I just said there causes people to go down that road and hermit, right? Or turtle, right? To go within your own shell and say, oh, I don't know, it doesn't matter what I do. So because of that, I'm not going to do anything and I'm just going to live my life. You're supposed to move past that and realize that people from a higher plane come back down to assist and serve as an example from every higher plane all the way back to the source. The source is doing the same thing. Hence the footprints in the sand and that vernacular of the person saying, why, Lord, in the times of my most need, did you abandon me? And that's when God says, you only see one set of footprints in the sand, not because I've abandoned you, but because that moment is when I'm carrying you. Okay. So the Creator is also doing that and assisting. So not everybody has within them the ability or the wanting to sacrifice themselves to go back down to a lower plane to help the people of a lower plane. And people don't tend to do that unless someone serves as an example. Okay. And the concept of that plays out in let's use, I was knighted by the Holy Roman Catholic Church. I'm a Knight of Columbus, 4th degree. Okay. Which is the highest you can get there. It's not like a 33, it's equal to a 33rd degree Freemason. Right. But we don't have all those degrees that you have to go through. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. But the knowledge is what you gain there, or the knowledge that you do gain there is that lesson that you learn when you're becoming a 3rd degree knight. You learn that lesson of leadership, of less than 10% of the population will stand in resistance to anyone at any particular time. Be that 10%. Be one of those 10%. Mahatma Gandhi, not doing it as a knight, teaching the same thing. Be the change that you wish to see in the universe. Change yourself and you change the universe. It's the same concept. It's a parable of the same concept. Okay. So down here in the 3rd dimension, if you want to change the face of the earth, you change yourself. You change yourself, and by doing so, you uplift people around you. People see that you changed who you are and became something new that inspires other people. 10%. Pay it forward. We have that saying in the world, pay it forward. That means do something kind for other people that is going to pay someone, that information of kindness, and then tell them, pay it forward, propagate it. So that concept in the 3rd dimensional, opening the door for a stranger, right? Moving out of the way for somebody, getting up and offering your seat to someone on a subway or a bus or something. That is the same thing. You're doing the exact same thing. You are sacrificing your comfort, yourself, your position that you have to assist another person in some way. I'm young enough, that person's old and is rickety and full of arthritis or whatever, and they are pregnant and needing to sit down. Look, I can stand. Please come and sit down. That act is the same act of assisting someone. That is the same act. Doing it because it needs to be done. You stop because somebody's choking. You run over and you help them, even if you're just calling 911. Or you run over and you know the Heimlich maneuver, or you know CPR, and you render that assistance. Or you just assist someone who is doing that. Or you're blocking traffic and you're telling people, go around. Right? I did that one time. I was driving down the road and I was at a stoplight, and these police officers pulled up and they got out of their car and they were chasing this guy who was in another car, and they ran and they left their doors wide open and their cars running and got out and were chasing him, and they were wrestling with him on the side of the street, and it was causing a traffic jam. I pulled my car around the car in front of me and drove across the street and parked in front of the police car, got out of the police car and started directing traffic for them so that people would keep moving so it wouldn't clog up the intersection because their doors were open. I didn't go and close their doors because I didn't have permission to touch their police cruisers. But what I did was I started directing traffic and getting people moving. And the cops, while they were wrestling, looked over to see what I was doing. And I'm over there going, you, go, 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 you, wait there. And so they looked up, saw me doing it, and went back to what they were doing, wrestling that guy down and getting him in handcuffs. Okay, while I was directing traffic to keep it moving around them so that we didn't have the entire intersection clogged up because they were already doing that. And kept doing that until they got him up, came back and put him in the car. And then the one cop came to me and said, thank you. And I said, you're welcome. My pleasure. Not a problem. He said, I got it from here. You can go. I said, thank you. And he said, no problem. And he said, thank you again. That was very kind of you to keep the traffic moving like that. So we didn't have a big to do and no one ran us over. So he turned around and started directing traffic. I got in my car. He directed me to go ahead and go. And I left. Okay. Why did I do that? It was the right thing to do, to keep the officers safe, to keep that guy safe, to keep everyone safe so that nobody got in an accident or ran somebody over. No one else did it. I got out and did it. I didn't do it because I wanted acclaim. I didn't do it because I wanted praise. I did it because it was the right thing to do and no one else was doing it. Okay. Why did I do that way? That way? My father did that when I was a boy and I saw him do it. He got up when there was an emergency and a car crashed into a fire truck and the person got injured and they were rendering assistance and their traffic was really bad. And my father saw it. I was standing there with him. We were out in front of the store waiting for my mother. He said, wait here. And he ran off and he started directing traffic because he used to be a fireman and he used to be a police officer. He ran out and he was directing traffic so that they were safe, so that they could render assistance to the woman and take care. I've done that. I did that with my brother one time when there was a shootout and some people got killed and people were trying to, looky-loos and they were worried about the crime scene and there was only 2 cops on the scene. Traffic had caused a problem and there was a car accident now. And I was there with my brother. I was 19. My brother was 18. And I came walking up and the cops saw us, realized that we were, about to go in the military and said, I need you to guard this car. Can you do that for me and not allow anybody to mess with this car or the dead body? And we said, absolutely. So he deputized us and said, you are now an acting police officer. Do not allow anyone to mess with this car. We said, not a problem. We stood there and everyone realized that. And when everybody would walk up, we'd be like, move along, get out of here. Right? They didn't know, the people who didn't know it, they didn't know we weren't cops. So we were standing there talking and they thought we were police officers, right? And they listened to us and they moved on. Okay. So we did that because it was the right thing to do, help, so that those officers could stop other people from getting hurt. So the same thing in those little things that people do here, you're doing the same thing. If you're in service to others, you choose to do those things, hold the door open for somebody. I was at the store the other day and I pulled up, I got into my car. I was loading my groceries up. Next to me, some people left their shopping carts in the stall to park, and this elderly man and woman were pulling in to park, and there wasn't enough room. I motioned for them, hold on. I ran over and pulled the carts out of the way for them so they could pull in. Then I handed them one of the carts so that they could go into the store, and they thanked me for it. I got in my van and I left. Why? I did that because it was the right thing to do. So on a small scale, you do those things already. You just don't see that on a large scale, you're doing the same thing. So when you get to the point where you go, what's the point of all this if none of it matters? It's the same point why you open the door for somebody, why you let somebody go ahead of you when you're in line and they have only 2 items and you have 400 items. It's the same thing. And you have to come to that realization that it is the same thing and then assist those people. You're supposed to come to that. If you're truly in service to others, you're going to want to help people. Okay. And that's why people do what they do. That's why I do what I do here. I do this here because it's the right thing to do for the people that are here because I have that ability. When you learn and wake up, you have the ability to gain the knowledge that these people don't have until they have it. You don't own it. It's not yours. The universe gives it to everybody when they get to a certain level. But until they get to that level, you have the knowledge that can help them. You have a responsibility to help them. You don't have to. There's nothing written that you get bad grades if you don't do it. So depending on how much you are in service to others, truly for yourself will determine whether or not you then try to assist people. It's not something that you have to do. And some people choose not to, and they become a hermit and they go, I'm just going to live my life. Screw it. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to do anything. So I don't want to help anybody. I don't care. Doesn't mean you're self-serving. It just means that you have gotten to that point where you think that whatever you do doesn't matter, and therefore it's not going to change anything. It is. Okay? It is, because you serve as an example of doing that, coming back to help. So those people who may not come back to help may see you do it, and they may help when they have the position to do so. So that is helping other people because somebody helped you to see this. And so now you're paying it forward by helping in some way, so that somebody, maybe only 1% of the people that you ever come in contact with, may now, when they get in that position, also come back to help. And that pays it forward and continues the cycle all the way back to source of people constantly coming back to a lower plane, all the way down to first dimension. We do it with our pets here. We're in third dimension. We give names to our pets. We talk to them. We get them to develop self-awareness faster than they would naturally by owning pets: cats, dogs, birds, fish, plants, all of that. Okay. You're assisting in their development by doing that, unless you don't talk to them and don't do anything besides throw food at them. Okay. All right, let's continue.
You may see the air and fire of that which is chaos as literally illuminating and forming the formless, for earth and water were, in the timeless state, unformed. As the active...
Jandra, welcome. I didn't say hi. I just saw that you said hi. Listening while I can. Cool. Right, welcome. All right. And then, Paulie, did I say hi to you? I think I did when you came in. Hi, if I didn't. All right, let's continue.
Principles of fire and air blow and burn incandescently about that which nurtures that which is to come. The water learns to become sea, lake, and river, offering the opportunity for viable life. The earth learns to be shaped, thus offer...
Sorry, Jamie, I didn't see that you asked a question. Jamie said, was that just an instinct for you? You know, I get confused by what is altruistic, right? And how much is a decision? Well, it kind of becomes both, right? It kind of becomes both. If you're in service to others, and you truly are, it becomes an instinctual thing. Do you see? So it is a decision that you make when you choose a side, when you choose to be in service to others or in service to self. Then you will choose at some point to what degree that you're willing to sacrifice. It doesn't change things other than your own development. You're not required to do any of that. For me in this lifetime, it was a choice. I came back to this reality and made sure that I was awake so that I could do what I'm doing here. So it wasn't something that I did that I didn't have any choice over. You ultimately have free will no matter what. So you're not required to do anything. You're never expected to do anything. It's just a matter of what you feel that you want to do. Do you see? So for me, in this life, I came in this life to do what I'm doing now. Okay? I came here in this life to do what I'm doing currently. That was a choice that I made a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Okay? Because of who I am in a higher self sense. Because of who I am there, this is what I do. Okay? And I do this all the time because not everyone does it. So there are some of us who are dedicated to do this. And we come and we don't let anybody know who we are usually, unless we're in a scenario that we're in here, like in this place where we're waking up a large portion of the population to restore the order in the chaos that has ensued on this planet because of self-serving people. So in a scenario like this, you have people like me who start identifying and letting you know that we're here from a higher plane to actually do this. For most of the lifetimes that I've been here on this planet, I've never talked like this and told anybody anything about myself. I'm still not keeping 100%. I am still keeping 100% of who I am and why I'm here away from most of the population of this earth. There will be most of who I truly am won't be revealed. A lot of who I am will be revealed in time. But however, there's some things that have to be not revealed. But for the most part, truly, I was doing this in every lifetime, but not every lifetime did I wake up enough to do this. In some lifetimes, I didn't wake up and pierce the veil, and I was just living a life. I was a bank robber in the Old West and got gunned down in the middle of the street robbing a bank. Died in that life. Another lifetime, I was in the Highlands of Scotland, and I was a Scottish Highlander, and I died in a clan war. Got rammed through. Weirdly, I have a scar where I had surgery, where I had a hernia, a high hernia that almost killed me, and they had to cut me open. And I have a scar in the exact place that right now that I was run through with a claymore and died. Oddly enough. But I never woke up in that life either. I was just a person living, and I died. I don't think I was 30 when I died in the clan war. Okay. So those of us who come here, we don't always wake up. That's part of the ecosystem. When you decide to come back, you're subject to the mind wipe, and you may not wake up for a few lifetimes to be able to remember why you're there, and you just live. Do you see? So it becomes instinctual when you are veiled. Instinctively, you start doing things to help people because on a higher level, you're aware that you came to help and assist. So you'll get yourself into a job where you're not self-serving, but you're in service to others, and you'll do that consistently. Once you start to wake up, you'll look at your past lives and realize that you were a doctor or a nurse or a healer or something like that, a counselor, a priest of a religion. You'll find that you were serving people in a larger respect than just being a person that was nice, and in every lifetime, because that was your instincts to do so. Do you see? So it's kind of both. I hope that answered your question. It's kind of both, that it is instinctual, but it's a choice that you made before you got here. Okay. So Jamie says a lot of it is learned behavior. Then, yes and no. Having good deeds molded to us, yes and no. Everything ultimately is a choice, but the act of other people sacrificing themselves. Let's use Jesus for an example. Jesus' sacrifice has spawned almost 3 billion souls on this earth to follow that way of life. Okay. So that model of the Jesus character affected people when they read the story enough for them to want to adopt the way of Jesus. When he said, the way to heaven is through me, the way of him, of his life path and his ideas of being good to each other and being kind to each other and assisting each other. Do you see? So some of it is a trait that is learned by modeling from someone else. But ultimately, it's still your choice. So just because you see somebody do something doesn't mean that you would have the courage to want to do it. And that's what is taught in leadership, or like when I was becoming a knight. And this is why we try to teach this to you when you're not a knight, is that it takes a lot of courage to stand. And that's why as a knight, you get your creed, you get your oath is to be upright so that God will love you, but also speak the truth, even if it leads to your death. Okay. So despite the fear of prosecution and persecution, you still stand. Why? Because only 10% of the population will stand up. And that's the lesson that you learn, is that you have to stand to lead people. And they show you that by creating a scenario for you to where they wait for someone and antagonize you until someone stands, because they know that when one person stands against them, other people will stand with them that wouldn't stand on their own. And then the domino effect happens, and more people, the mob rules, more and more people will then polarize against the totalitarian ideology. Hence, COVID and the response from COVID 5 years hence. Okay? The population of the earth has polarized against that way of totalitarianism and what they were trying to enact on the world by the lockdowns and the draconian ideology of taking control of the population. That made more than 50% of the population polarize against that thought process and make changes in 68 countries now around the world. Okay. So they were trying to gain control before that happened, and it backfired, and it happened anyways. They couldn't stop the polarization. So some of it is the potentiation. This gets back to, so it's actually a really good question that you asked. This gets back to what Raw was talking about in this session about the potentiator, about the potentiation. So an act of someone doing these things that you see or are exposed to becomes a potentiator for you in the future, for you to then decide, do I want to become like that person? Like for me, do I want to be like my father because he was doing these things? So for me, that I didn't have to choose to be like my father. I could have gone, I don't want to have any part of that. Screw that. Do you see? Or I want to do that, but I don't have the courage to do that. And it's the right thing to do, but I'm not going to get out of my car and go direct traffic. Right? You don't have to do any of that stuff, but it's there as a potentiation, just like me giving the tools of how to ascend. You don't have to pick up those tools and use them. I don't have to worry whether or not you're going to pick up the tools and use them. And this is what I was getting across to Penny with her daughter. Love her enough to allow her, just put the tools out there in front of her and say, these are tools. You might need them. If they say, what are those tools for? Like you're doing now, what are those tools for? Then I say, thank you for asking that question. Here's what these tools are for and how they work. And then you can still then look and go, okay, duly noted, and not do anything with it. Nobody is going to look at you differently in the universal mindset of things. You're not going to be judged. And that's the term judge not lest ye be judged as the lesson. So you're not going to be judged if you don't act by anyone except people who are in service to self. They're going to judge you ultimately every time you do or don't do something. What, you call yourself a Christian and you don't help those people over there? Do you see? They're going to do that because they're shaming you to control you. Do you see? So thank you. Jamie said you guys all answered my questions. Thank you. So Jacqueline, welcome. I didn't see Jacqueline was here. Welcome. Oh, she just got here. She said hello. Okay, so you have to realize that it's the potentiation of, so it becomes a potentiator by someone doing an act of service, and that you have ultimately the free will to either accept that and use it and do and act in kind the way they did, or not in your life. And nobody's going to care because it's your journey, and so it's for you. So how you proceed in your journey. Right. Who was it that said, I think it was it might've been Buddha. Don't quote me, but it was one of them from back then. I think it was either, I think it was Confucius that said, your journey is your own journey. And it doesn't matter how long it takes you to get there. The only thing that matters is that you continue walking. Okay. So it was Confucius. So that is the truth about everything. So me giving the tools out to the world in any way that I can doesn't mean that I expect anyone to follow me or anything else that I'm saying. Okay. If one person learns something from what I've said, then I've done my job. I've replaced myself. I've paid it forward to one other person who can pay it forward. Do you see? So that should be enough for anyone who is trying to be in service to others, who will then say, I want all the likes and all the clicks and all those people are still in their egoic mind because they're looking for praise. They're looking for people to follow them. They're looking for, that's ego. Do you see? And that's also an example. So somebody who is not like that is showing that by their actions to the people who might be in service to others, but still be a little egoic, and they're looking for praise, and they're looking for a title, and they're looking for clicks and likes and all of that. Do you see? But you can justify that however you want. Some people are like, well, I got to make a living. Granted. Okay. So if you got to make a living, then I always tell everybody in this industry, if you got to make a living, get out of this industry, pick another one, because you can make a lot more money, and you will make a lot more money in your life by not doing what I'm doing. And anyone else is doing this will tell you the same thing, right? However, you can still do it within this industry if you do it the right way and you charge people for what you're doing, okay? And that's when people, unfortunately, look at what I do and what we do in this industry, and they go, it should be for free. You're not helping anybody if you charge them. And that's when I look at them and go, do you pay for your gasoline when you get it? Well, they're providing a service, but I'm not. I'm teaching you something. I'm giving you a service of knowledge and tools so that you will ascend. They're giving you a service of gasoline, which is a tool for your car to go. Do you see? So for people who are doing this and trying to make money off of it, I say more power to you. I hope it works, man. Right? But don't expect it in this line of work. I would like to be able to for people to say that and acknowledge spirituality as any other industry. It's the only industry on the face of the earth where people, for some reason, and I think it has to do with evil people propagating that because they don't want people to be doing what we're doing. So they try to dissuade us in every way they can by not acknowledging this as a legitimate business. So they tell people that should be for free. Don't pay those people because they don't want you learning from anyone who knows what they're doing. And they don't want to reward anybody from being because of them being in service to others. But there's service industries that they have to pay them for because they don't want to do that job, people that are self-serving. They need doctors and nurses and mechanics and people to grow food for them and people to cook food for them. The rich people need all of those services, so they have to have that service industry and pay people for it. They don't care about spirituality. They don't need that. So they're not going to pay and have an industry pay for that. That's the truth about why it's hard in this industry to get money for it. Not because this industry is not applicable or that it is different than any other industry, because it's exactly the same. The only difference is people that are self-serving don't need this industry. Because they're self-serving, they get the information from being self-serving. So they don't want to reward this side of things because they don't want us in existence. So they do everything they can do to stifle anybody paying for that. Okay, so let's continue with Raw here now.
Bring the opportunity for viable life. 78.30 Questioner. Are the 7 archetypes for mind a function of or related to the 7 densities that are to be experienced in the octave? Ra. I am Ra. The relationship is tangential in that no congruency may be seen. However, the progress through the archetypes has some of the characteristics of the progress through the densities. These relationships may be viewed without being, shall we say, pasted one upon the other. 78.31 Questioner. How about the 7 bodily energy centers? Are they related to archetypes in some way? Ra. I am Ra. The same may be said of these. It is informative to view the relationships but stifling to insist upon the limitations of congruency. Recall at all times, if you would use this term, that the archetypes are a portion of the resources of the mind complex.
Okay, so here we're talking about the chakras again. Now the 7 major arcana of the archetypes that are the actual chakras. So if you're looking at a tarot deck, you have the major arcana and the minor arcana. The minor arcana are the other chakras that we have in our body. Every bend point that you have in your body is an energy center that is a chakra. Okay, so even the spinal column with 33 vertebrae, there are sub logos to the logi, sub logos to the logos. So you have the major arcana, which are the chakras, right? The 7 chakras that are in there, and then you have that's the major arcana, and those are personality traits that we all have a part of. So if somebody is living in the flesh, say, in the 3rd dimension, they would be living in the bottom 3 chakras, which are the nature chakras. That doesn't mean that they don't have access and they're not ruled by the upper 3 chakras and the heart chakra, because they are. But they're not living in that space, so they're not dominated by that. So in this grand scheme of things, the lower 3 chakras is the self-serving 3 chakras. That doesn't mean that all the people that are in those chakras are self-serving, but that is where you would be if you were self-serving. You would not be in the upper chakras because that is the spiritual. The highest where you would go is the heart chakra, because the heart chakra rules them both. That is the Vesica Pisces. That is the yin and the yang, where you see a little bit of lightness in the dark and a little bit of dark in the light. That is the heart where it overlaps. That is the heart chakra. because love is the case for both. So people that are in service to self love themselves. People that are in service to others, living in the upper three chakras, primarily they love others because they're spiritual. Okay, that doesn't mean that people that are living in the upper three chakras are not ruled by the lower three chakras. They are. It's just to what extent becomes less. If you're living more in the bottom three chakras in those major arcanas, you're going to be ruled less by the upper three chakras, and vice versa. Okay, but you still have to balance all of that out so that you can be a totality, right? So that you can be a complete. And then you have the sub-logi, the sub-chakras at every energy point where you bend, where the muscles flex. Okay? So that is an energy center, and the actuator of the energy center is the hinge that moves the elbow. That is a chakra point in that elbow that the energy moves, and the muscle tissue and the sinew pulls the arm, pushes the arm, flexes the arm, the shoulder, the knee, everything. Your head swivels, it moves up and down. It's on a chakra point. Okay. So those are the minor arcana of the physical condition. So those coincide with what's going on in the tarot cards, major arcana and minor arcana. Okay. So when you're reading tarot cards and you're reading something that's from the major arcana, it's one of the archetypes of the chakras. And if you're reading the minor arcanas, that's the other chakras that affect the limbs of your body. And then specifically by the suit or the deck or the suit in that deck will determine which areas of your body that is being discussed. Also your physical plane, also your non-physical soul in the same respect when you're reading about that. So mind, body, spirit, totality. When you're getting a reading, it could be referring to in the physical, it could be referring to in the spiritual, or a little bit of both. And a good reader will designate that and allow you to know by their divination of the message coming to you, their interpretation of that message. They'll let you know if it's in your physical life or if it's in your spiritual life or if it's in both. You'll get that from the reader, from the medium, when the medium is doing that reading for you. Okay, let's continue here.
78.32 Questioner. Then is there any relationship between the archetypes and the planets of our solar system? Ra, I am Ra. This is not a simple query. Properly, the archetypes have some relationship to the planets. However, this relationship is not one which can be expressed in your language. This, however, has not halted those among your people who have become adepts from attempting to name and describe these relationships. To most purely understand, if we may use this misnomer, the archetypes, it is well to view the concepts which make up each archetype and reserve the study of planets and other correspondences for meditation. 78.33 Questioner.
So, okay, on a galactic scale now, he's gone from the archetypes of the physical plane, first dimension, second dimension, third dimension, first chakra, second chakra, third chakra, and above. Now he's talking about and expanding out to the solar system and the galaxy. And the same rules apply and the same archetypes apply on a grandiose scale, microcosm to the macrocosm. Okay? So as below, so above. Do you understand? So now you have the planet itself. So everything has the same archetypes and major arcana and minor arcana. Okay? Right? And Cassie was typing it when I was saying it. Look at that. Bang! Micro to the macro. That's funny, Cassie. You're like minds, right? She was typing it, and I said it, and she's like, pink, and it came through. And she would have, if there was no lag, she would have popped that up probably exactly while I was saying it, because she probably hit enter while I was saying it. But because there's a lag, it took a second for it to pop up on my screen and me to see it, right? Cassie said, "Jinx, Leo," and she started laughing, right? Let me put that up on the screen. That's funny. Okay, so, but truly, okay, so when you look at the self, we have those 7 major arcana. When you look at a tree, they have those 7 major arcana. When you look at a cat, they have those 7 major arcana. When you look at the wind, it has those 7 major arcana. If you doubt that, go outside when it's raining, when the sun is out. If you're standing in the right position, you'll see those 7 major arcana in the raindrops in the sky. It's called the rainbow. Okay? And the light shining through, light coming from the sun, from the sol, the star, coming down and shining through the prism of the water droplet, which separates that light spectrum for you to see, will show you the same chakras, okay, in the air for you to see. It's inherent in everything. So here, Ra is explaining to Dawn, the questioner, that yes, on that scale, you have the same scenario. So when you go from, say, one-dimensional being to second-dimensional to third-dimensional, the only thing that changes there is the perception of the being and the realization of the being, of self. When the being has self, the being becomes a third-dimensional beingness, and then you begin the journey of reflection and experience. And then when you become when you're self-aware, then when you become more self-aware and start to expand your consciousness of that quandary from not only am I a being here, is there any life out there? Now you're moving up again in the next phase from being, say, second dimensional being not self-aware, and you're becoming self-aware of self. You're becoming aware of self. Then when you're here in the third dimension and you start to pierce the veil, you become aware of the higher self. Do you see? It's the next evolution. And then when you become aware of the higher self, then you start becoming aware of, is there other selves out there? Is there other ecosystems like this planet? Now you're becoming aware of the expansion into the infinite possibilities of infinity, of creation, of infinite wisdom, of infinite everything. That's the next evolution. That's going into 5D. Then there's more evolutions of reconciliation of the archetypes, again, in a larger scale, in the macro scale, as you ascend from the micro up to the macro. So again, it's cyclical in nature, and there's just a new realization and expansion of your consciousness into, away from the realm of the physical into the realm of the spiritual. And in that realm of the spiritual, you then have new expansions of your consciousness, because then you become consciousness. Where here you're just becoming aware of the self. You're not becoming consciousness yet. You just realize you have consciousness. So eventually you start becoming consciousness. Okay? And there's an expansion to that. We're talking 5D, 6D now, true 6D, when you're expanding to that place. Okay? So let's continue. All right?
It just seemed to me that since the planets were an outgrowth of the logos, and since the archetypical mind was the foundation for the experience, that the planets of this logos would be in some way related. We will certainly follow your suggestion. I have been trying to get a foothold into an Indies doorway, you might say, into the archetypical mind. It seems to me that everything that I have read having to do with archetypes is, to some degree or another, distorted by those who have written, and the fact that our language is not really capable of description.
Okay, I'm going to stop right there real quick, because Peter's talking about, he's saying, under the ruins, he's talking about different places. Now, for the Celts, in the stones, in the ruins of some of the places that he's referring to that are over in Ireland, Wales, and Scotland, in that region of the world, there's also other places around the world where we're finding ruins under other cities, whole cities under other cities. And people are like, why is it important for us to know that stuff? Because, like Peter is saying, there is a frequency. Let me put it up on the screen here. Okay, so there are information and frequencies and knowledge that are involved in the past, that people in the past planted throughout time, like, for instance, the Dead Sea Scrolls. They were buried in a cave, or they weren't buried, but they were in a cave in pottery, and they were sitting there for 1,000 years. No one even knew they were there, till some kids happened to be throwing rocks while they were watching the sheep, and Dad went off to go and tend to the flock of sheep in a different area. Watch the sheep here, kids, I'll be back. And they're like, they're bored, start throwing rocks into caves, and they heard pottery break, and they went in there and they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. pulled them out, gave them to their father. He didn't know what they were, started burning some of them. So some of the Dead Sea Scrolls disappeared because Dad burned them for firewood. Then eventually he opened one of the scrolls and realized there was writing there, and he took all of them that he had to go sell them to make money, and they were grabbed up by museums, and eventually we have what we have now out in the world for us to read. That's why some of them have holes in them, and some of them are missing because they were old and they had been falling apart. Some of them got damaged in shipping, and some of them got damaged when they were trying to read them. So when you listen to the scrolls, you'll hear, or you read them, you'll see that there are missing words because they were either torn out or they had been eaten away by whatever, worms or whatever, or damaged because of time, right? But we have this information. So the same thing goes for when they go into ruins. They write on the walls. They leave things for people, scrolls and things for people, or they write on tablets. And we find these things and they were planted. We do that with time capsules today. We put stuff in the ground and bury them there on purpose for people in the future to open them up so that they get a snapshot into the past 50 years ago, say, or 100 years ago. There are some people that are planting things in the ground so that people find them later in antiquity on purpose. What's to say that some of the stuff that we're finding now was not, in fact, planted by people on purpose for people to find in the future? Purposefully knew it was there. There's a couple of places over in Turkey where we're digging that up, and we realize they buried that on purpose. So they made an entire many structures with stories and planted them in the ground, created them, chiseled them, wrote these things out, and then buried them so that nobody would find them only in the future. Did they know that in the future people were going to find them? Or then gets almost macabre. Or did a person who was the soul of one of the people that did that and orchestrated it and buried it, did they recycle and come forward in time 70,000 years and born into a body with the instinction, with the instinct of, I need to go and dig and look for this place and find it and dig it up, because they were wanting to make sure that people in the future found those things? The answer to that, you can only truly know when you ponder that yourself. Okay? But it's just as possible that the person who buried them is the same person who dug them up 75,000 years later, 77,000 years to be exact, later. Just as plausible that that's the origin of that person's will to happen on that, to find it, because they knew it was there. Super consciously, more importantly, not subconsciously, but super consciously, they sent themselves into the future and came back in a human form and went to find that place and start the excavation of it. So some of that is true. Some of the people who found Machu Picchu may have lived in Machu Picchu, and that's how they knew to go into that jungle and discover it in this lifetime. You don't know the answer to that. You can't know the answer to that until the ascension, so that you can tap into the Akashic records and find that answers to those out. But you can only do that by the ascension, by becoming unveiled and learning those things, right? And so that's the only way that you can do that. And then usually when you do learn that stuff, you can only tell people that are ready to hear it, because this place will stop you from telling people that are not ready for it, or they will. They'll deny it. They won't want to hear it. They'll think you're crazy. You're just making it up. Like some people out there in the world hearing me say it right now will go, yeah, that's not a thing. Because they're nowhere near anywhere in their development to even ponder that possibility. Nope, he's making it up. Period. No empirical proof. Making it up. Stupid, crazy person. And that's how they'll justify it, because they cannot in any way fathom that information being a possibility. So it becomes a potentiator now. By me saying it, becomes a potentiation for everyone out there to discern for themselves what they believe is how that happened in that scenario, or none of it all, and not even contemplate it yourself at all. All of that is the free will of this place and how this matrix works. All right, let's continue.
You have spoken of the magician as a basic archetype and that this seems to have been carried through from the previous octave. Would this then be, if there is an order, the first archetypical concept of this logos? Ra, I am Ra. We would first respond to your confusion as regards the various writings upon the archetypical mind. You may well consider the very informative difference between a thing in itself and its relationships or functions. There is much study of archetype which is actually the study of functions, relationships, and correspondences. The study of planets, for instance, is an example of archetype seen as function. However, the archetypes are, first and most profoundly, things in themselves, and the pondering of them and their purest relationships with each other should be the most useful foundation for the study of the archetypical mind. We now address your query as to the archetype which is the matrix of the mind. As to its name, the name of magician is understandable when you consider that consciousness is the great foundation, mystery, and revelation which makes this particular density possible. The self-conscious entity is full of the magic of that which is to come. It may be considered first, for the mind is the first of the complexes to be developed by the student of spiritual evolution. 78.34 Questioner, would the archetype then that has been called the High Priestess, which represents the intuition, be properly the second of the archetypes? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. You see here the recapitulation of the beginning knowledge of this logos, that is, matrix and potentiator.
See, so again, now he's talking about the archetypes. Now we're actually moving into the tarot aspect of that. But again, everything becomes the potentiator, right? So pay attention to that, right? I explained that, right? The potentiator. So you have to determine how you interpret that to be able to move into or accept any knowledge, including divination, including scrying, including somebody reading you in any way as a medium or using cards, right? Tarot cards or whatever.
Conscious is indeed what may be poetically described as High Priestess, for it is the potentiator of the mind, and as potentiator for the mind is that principle which potentiates all experience. 78.35 Questioner, then for the third archetype would the Empress be correct and be related to disciplined meditation? Ra, I am Ra.
Hi, Rick. I don't know if I said hi to you. Were you here before and I said hi to you, or did you just pop in and I missed that? Hi, Rick. I don't know if I said hi to you. I feel that you were here earlier and I didn't say hello. So hello. All right, let's continue. I'm sorry. If I didn't say hi and you'd been here for a while, Rick, I apologize for that. I'm just looking down. I'm reading what you're writing. I'm like, did he just get here or did I miss him? Sorry about that if I did, brother. Let's continue.
I perceive a mind complex intention of a query, but was aware only of sound vibratory statement. Please re-question. 78.36 Questioner, I was asking if the third archetype was the Empress, and was it correct to say that this archetype had to do with disciplined meditation? Ra, I am Ra. The third archetype may be broadly grasped as the catalyst of the mind. Thus it takes in far more than disciplined meditation. However, it is certainly through this faculty that catalyst is most efficiently used. The archetype, 3, is perhaps confusedly called Empress, although the intention of this nomer is the understanding that it represents the unconscious or female portion of the mind complex being first, shall we say, used, or ennobled by the male or conscious portion of the mind. Thus the noble name. 78.37 Questioner, the fourth archetype, called the Emperor, seems to have to do with the experience of other selves and the green ray energy center with respect to other selves.
Right. So now, like I said, he's moved into, this is where Dawn gets kind of weird, because he went from talking about third dimension and third dimensional beings with the archetype to first and second dimension, and now he's talking about the tarot. But it relates, and this is the mind of Dawn as the questioner being a scientist, because he's dealing with now the archetypes in the different aspects. Do you see? So he went from literally first dimension, second dimension, started in third dimension, went down first and second, then went to expanding past the archetype of the Earth to the galaxy, into the universe, and now he's gone to the same archetypes in the tarot, because they apply on the same archetypes, again, microcosm to the macrocosm. Okay, so now we're talking about for spirituality and divination for the tarot cards, and that's why the descriptions are Empress and things like that. Okay, so let's continue.
Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is perceptive. The broad name for archetype 4 may be the experience of the mind. In the tarot you find the name of Emperor. Again, this implies nobility, and in this case we may see the suggestion that it is only through the catalyst which has been processed by the potentiated consciousness that experience may ensue. Thusly is the conscious mind ennobled by the use of the vast resources of the unconscious mind. This instrument's dorsal side grows stiff, and the instrument tires. We welcome one more query. 78.38 Questioner, I would like to ask the reason for this session having been longer than most previous sessions, and also if there is anything we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or improve the contact. Ra, I am Ra. This instrument was given far more than the, shall we say, usual amount of transferred energy. There is a limit to the amount of energy of this type which may, with safety, be used when the instrument is, itself, without physical reserves. This is inevitably due to the various distortions such as we mentioned previously in this working having to do with growing dorsal discomfort. The alignments are fastidious. We appreciate your conscientiousness. In order to enhance the comfort of the instrument, it might be suggested that careful manipulation of the dorsal area be accomplished before a working. It is also suggested that, due to the attempt at psychic attack, this instrument will require warmth along the right side of the physical complex. There has been some infringement, but it should not be long-lasting. It is, however, well to swaddle this instrument sufficiently to ward off any manifestation of this cold in physical form. I am Ra. I leave you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, merrily rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.
Right, let me unshare this one, and I will go to the next session, and we will share that, and I'll share that. So let me get this open here, and then we'll share it, and then
February 20.
Then we'll start the next session. Let me close this window over here, go over here, and present this, and then we'll go ahead and start the next session. Okay? Because we have time. Right? Let me put myself back up in full screen. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead. I'll do a audio check, make sure that you guys can hear this, and we'll go on to session 79, I believe, right?
February 24th, 1982. 79.0 Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. 79.1 Questioner, could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Ra, I am Ra. It is as previously stated.
You guys let me know if you can hear it okay, right? Hopefully you can hear it. I'm not just sitting here staring at the screen and you guys hear nothing.
79.2 Questioner, the instrument would like to ask, is there any danger in receiving too much transferred energy with the instrument in her present condition? Ra, I am Ra. No. 79.3 Questioner, she would also like to ask if the very large energy transfer of last session was a sexual transfer in total? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 79.4 Questioner, in that case, she would like to know the function of the energy transfer during the session. Ra, I am Ra. The function of this energy transfer is a most helpful one in that it serves to strengthen the shuttle through which the INS reaming contact is received. The contact itself will monitor the condition of the instrument and cease communication when the distortions of the instrument begin to fluctuate towards the distortions of weakness or pain. However, while the contact is ongoing, the strength of the channel through which this contact flows may be aided by the energy transfer of which you spoke. 79.5 Questioner, we have been ending our banishing ritual prior to the session here by a gesture that relieves us of the magical personality. I was just wondering if we should omit that gesture so as to maintain the magical personality while performing the circle of one, and then only relinquish the magical personality either after that has formed or after the session. Which would be more appropriate? Ra, I am Ra. The practice of magical workings demands the most rigorous honesty. If your estimate of your ability is that you can sustain the magical personality throughout this working, it is well. As long as you have some doubt, it is inadvisable. In any case, it is appropriate for this instrument to return its magical personality rather than carry this persona into the trance state, for it does not have the requisite magical skill to function in this circumstance and would be far more vulnerable than if the waking personality is offered as channel.
Okay, so here you have to realize that the reference that Ra is using, magical personality and physical personality. Okay, so magical personality being the higher self, physical personality being the individual in the avatar. Okay. So there is a difference in that because you're outside of the body, and your personality becomes slightly different there because you're more awake there. So if you're outside of the veiling, outside of time, you're going to be in your higher self, not necessarily your higher self, right? But it is, and so that's the reference that Ra is using here to make the differentiation between the self that is you when you're veiled and the self that is you when you're unveiled. That doesn't necessarily mean that is your higher self, and that is anchored between the halfway through the sixth density, because that's where that is the first anchor point, because there's another one above that. Okay, that's the first anchor point to all of the lower chakras, or to the lower frequencies, the lower vibrations, but they also represent chakras, right? Because everything ultimately does. Everything ultimately represents that ecosystem because it is in everything, right? So people even take on that persona, right? Like those of us that are in the coalition, taking on those archetypes as well. Not just what you're taking on as your individual. You reside in one of those places as it is, even balancing all of those, depending on where you are in your development. So if you're living in the base red ray root chakra, chances are, unless you're representing that for a purpose, you're living there. It's because that is what you are. That doesn't necessarily mean that somebody who is completely veiled living in that place is here for the very first time as a soul. They could be doing the entire ascension backwards and learning the survival portion last. So you can't assume that somebody who doesn't seem to be awake and that you seem to be more awake than them are behind you in development, because it's not necessarily the case. They may be far more advanced than you and have come back to just do that particular thing. Or they may have already gone through all of the other steps of the ascension and chose to do that last. Not everybody does it linearly at all. You have to realize that people jump around. Okay, everything that you can imagine as a development is being done here before your eyes. Everyone gets this idea that everybody else is learning the exact way they learn. That's wrong. Okay, not everybody learns the same way you do, and not everybody learns in the same order that you do. Everyone has free will to learn in whatever order they wish to learn in their own time. Okay, so looking at people and going, well, that one's here for the first time, unless you have that ability to see that for definite, for certain, you cannot assume that when you look at somebody who doesn't seem to be an old soul. People have that ability, and they can see a soul that's in a body and go, that's a really old soul. That person doesn't mean they're going to be the Dalai Lama. They could have chosen to be living in the flesh in this life, and they're going to stay there, and you're looking at them and going, they're an old soul. Why are they not acting like it? Because they chose not to in this life. You have to realize that. All right, let's continue here.
This working is indeed magical in nature in the basic sense. However, it is inappropriate to move more quickly than one's feet may walk. 79.6 Questioner. I would like to question about the third density experience of those just prior to the original extension of the first distortion to the sublogoi to create the split of polarity. Can you describe in general the differences between the third density experience of these mind/body/spirit complexes and the ones who have evolved upon this planet in this experience that we experience now? Ra. I am Ra. This material has been previously covered. Please query for specific interest. 79.7 Questioner. Specifically, in the experience where only the service to others polarity in third density evolved for continued evolution into the higher densities, was the veil that is drawn with respect to knowledge of previous incarnations, etc., in effect for those entities? Ra. I am Ra. No. 79.8 Questioner. Was the reincarnational process like the one that we experience here, in which the third density body is entered and exited for numerous times during the cycle? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. 79.9 Questioner. Is it possible to give a time of incarnation with respect to our years, and would you do so if it is? Ra. I am Ra. The optimal incarnative period is somewhere close to a measure you call a millennium. This is, as you may say, a constant regardless of other factors of the third density experience. 79.10 Questioner. Then prior to the first extension of the first distortion, the veil or loss of awareness did not occur. Then, from this I will make the assumption that this veil or loss of remembering consciously that which occurred before the incarnation was the primary tool for extending the first distortion. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. Your correctness is limited. This was the first tool. 79.11 Questioner. Then from that statement I assume that the Logos contemplating a mechanism to become what it was not first devised the tool of separating the unconscious from the conscious during what we call physical incarnation to achieve its objective? Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. Yes. 79.12 Questioner. Then from that statement I also assume that many other tools were conceived and used after the first tool of the so-called veil. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. There have been refinements. 79.13 Questioner. The archetypical mind of the Logos prior to this experiment in extension of the first distortion then was what I would consider to be less complex than it is now, possibly containing fewer archetypes. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. We must ask your patience. We perceive a sudden flare of the distortion known as pain in this instrument's left arm and manual appendage. Please do not touch this instrument. We shall examine the mind complex and attempt to reposition the limb so that the working may continue. Then please repeat the query. 2-minute pause. I am Ra. You may proceed. 79.14 Questioner. Thank you. Prior to the experiment to extend the first distortion, how many archetypes were there for the creation of the Logos of that time? Ra, I am Ra. There were 9. 79.15 Questioner. 9 archetypes. I will guess that those 9 were 3 of mind, 3 of body, and 3 of spirit. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct.
Okay, so now let me rewind that. Did you guys pay attention to what was being said there? Okay, so there was a time when we didn't have 7 chakras, but 9. 3 of body, 3 of mind, 3 of spirit. Let me rewind that again so we can hear this. Okay, this is important if you think about it here. Let me go back right there. Should be far enough, I think. Might be too far.
I am Ra. We must ask your patience. We perceive a sudden flare of the distortion known as pain in this instrument's left arm and manual appendage. Please do not touch this instrument. We shall examine the mind complex and attempt to reposition the limb so that the working may continue. Then please repeat the query. 2-minute pause. I am Ra. You may proceed. 79.14 Questioner. Thank you. Prior to the experiment to extend the first distortion, how many archetypes were there for the creation of the Logos of that time? Ra, I am Ra. There were 9.
Okay, hold on. Cassie, I'll answer that question. She said, why are there less then, right? Why are there less now, right? Then I'll explain that. But let me let Ra continue with this so I don't have to play it again. Because I already played it once, I'm playing it back. So let me let Ra talk about it, and then I'll go ahead and explain that, okay?
79.15 Questioner. 9 archetypes. I will guess that those 9 were 3 of mind, 3 of body, and 3 of spirit. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 79.16 Questioner. I am going to guess that in the system of the tarot those archetypes would roughly correspond to, for the mind, the magician, the emperor, and the chariot. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect. 79.17 Questioner. Could you tell me what they correspond to? Ra, I am Ra. The body, the mind, and the spirit each contained and functioned under the aegis of the matrix, the potentiator, and the significator. The significator of the mind, body, and spirit is not identical to the significator of the mind, body, and spirit complexes. 79.18 Questioner. I now understand what you meant in the previous session by saying to extend free will the significator must become a complex. It seems that the significator has become the complex that is the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th of the mind, the 10th on of the body, and the 17th on of the spirit. Is this correct?
Close.
Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect.
Yeah.
79.19 Questioner.
Okay, so if you're listening here, so why is it different now? Because the developmental state of the people here is different. Okay. There was a falling, right? So when there's a falling, then what happened was the knowledge or the ability to tap into this expanded consciousness became less. So what we have is 3 in the physical and 3 in the spiritual, but nothing in the mind now. So we're missing 2 chakras because the heart is part of the mind, but the chakra is missing. Why is that, and how is that possible? This gets back to when I say to people out there that the names of the chakras, the only place that that's stipulated is in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which the Emerald Tablets are 77,000 years old. And the names of the gods that rule the archetypes are 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9. That means there are 2 chakras missing. Do you see? So instead of being 1 through 7, it's 3 through 9, and we're missing 1 and 2. So when you readjust your thinking to that, that's expanding your consciousness to the proper place, because the red ray root chakra is not the number 1 chakra. It's the 3rd one. There are 2 below that. So in truth, what we're having is a misplacement of, and that's where the potentiation has to become a totality for that to be in place where it's supposed to be, which then it shifts them into a different position, but the number is still the same. And there are some places where they're starting to show you them out of order in the proper way. So we have 2 chakras that are no longer there because it's been taken away from us. The expansion of our consciousness of the heart and the mind is no longer there because we're ruled either in the physical or in the spiritual. So we're actually missing part of our own selves. And that's part of the expansion of your consciousness. That's why we call it the expansion of your consciousness. It's the expansion of the mind. So for us to, once you start getting into 6D, it realigns itself. Down here in 3rd dimension, being veiled, we don't have access to that because we're veiled. That's the only difference, truly, because of the falling. Okay, so the only reason that we don't have access to it because we're veiled. When you become unveiled, truly unveiled, you now have access to that, to those chakras, because they actually reside above, not below. But they're also within, and that's the totality. So they're in a place that is not in order of your mind saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, going 1 at the base and 9 at the top, because that's not how it works. But that's how we have it aligned in our body. But those chakras are in a different place. This is why in the ancient times on the Viking tree of life, they weren't in order this way, they were in order this way. And that's why in the ancient times in the Hebrew and in the Far East, the Kabbalah is this way, not up the center and down the center. It is only in the Hindu orders where they say the chakras are only straight up and down. And that's why I mentioned earlier the major arcana and the minor arcana, and that every place that we have a bend is a chakra point. The major archetypes are overlapping in the 7 that we have, and then there are 2 more, and then there are the sub-logi, the sub-chakras that are attached to those, and you start to see people adding those. So the expansion from 7, and I've said this before, is quickly going to go to an 8 and a 9, a 10, 11, and a 12, back to the way they were before. So if you look at the Tree of Life by the Vikings, the Yggdrasil, there are 9 major arcana that they show you, 9 worlds. Not 7, but 9. They have 2 more. If you look at the Kabbalah, there are 10. They have 1 more. But if you look at the Viking pantheon, they actually have the 10th one there. It's just not a reality where they call it like Utenheim, Jotunheim, and the like. It's there, though. Okay? It's the totality. Yggdrasil itself becomes that other archetype. And if you look at the meme that I made, or the reel that I made a couple years ago, where I show the human body, you see the endocrine system, you see our body, and you count like the chakras. You count like the eyes, the ears, the mouth, the nose, right? The mouth, the nose, the heart, the liver, the kidneys, the testicles, male or female, in the anatomy, plus our skin becomes 9 archetypes, not 7. So the realization of 5D is unlocking the totality of the other 2 archetypes, because you're moving out of mind into mind in the spiritual at the same time as internal. So you're moving into the spiritual and into the mind when you get into 5D, real 5D. Real 4D and real 5D. When you move into 4D, you unlock one of the chakras, and when you move into 5D, you unlock the second chakra. Eventually, when you go into 60, 70, 8D, you're going to have 12 chakras, then you're going to have 24 chakras. Okay? So let me see what you guys are saying here. Because we're more connected back than before, all of the programming and hiding the knowledge of the old ways, because we fell, and as you start moving into that, you start learning that, and that's what accesses that, right? And Cassie said, Leo, can you access these missing 2 fully when you're in 3D, or only when you reach 7D? No, you can. That's what I'm saying. I was actually answering your question, not knowing you had your question. In the 3D, as you become self-aware of the higher self, that's moving into 4D. When you stop equating your higher self as she or he, but I, me, right? The first thing you do is you start saying we, and then you start realizing, because the first thing you do is my higher self, and then you'll say, like, for me, I'm a man, he this, he that. I'm talking to my higher self, he. Third person. That's the first realization. You're starting to unlock that next chakra. When you get past the realization of that being a separate entity, and you move into that place and realize, me, I am the higher self. That's who I am. Then you start losing yourself here in this place, and you start becoming more your higher self. Your personality changes slightly, but your personality still stays identifying with this down here, but then you have a disassociation with this place. That's accessing that other chakra. That's when you start talking more like Jacqueline, right? She's accessing those chakras and going beyond that. And that's when you start doing that. So you're doing it when you start becoming unveiled. You just don't know you're doing it. The realization that those chakras are there and that you're accessing it is when you're actually moving, getting ready to move physically into 4D. This is what Ra is explaining, how there's a difference between the potentiation being determined by the physical beingness and the spiritual beingness of both of those in the chakras. The more you move into the spiritual, the more you unlock those chakras, and the more you stay in the physical, the more those chakras are not available to you. In the same way that being in service to self and in service to others give you a different package of downloads. Once you then start to move up into the spiritual, even in 3D, you start getting access the same way when you're in 3D and you're in the lower chakras and you start residing more in the upper chakras. When you're in the lower chakras and you're down here, you can't access the upper chakras as much, but you're aware of them being a thing. You just don't, you're not being ruled by that because you're living in the flesh only. That doesn't mean you're self-serving. It just means that you're not moving into a spiritual place. When you start moving into a spiritual place, you move into the upper 3 chakras. And then when you start expanding your consciousness away from the physical into the spiritual, you become aware of those chakras and the balance of the chakras. And then you start to move more into the self of yourself and that realization. And then that pull allows you to have access to more downloads from those chakra places that are a higher place, which is actually internal. So the number of the chakra is a lesser number, but it's more of a spiritual chakra. The same thing can be accessed if you're evil as well, because you go all the way to halfway through the 6th. So that's why it's not in the higher place and the chakra number is 3 at the base root because that one's internalized. That's the secret of Odin giving up his eye to be able to see the past and the future. And that song where in the song he says, "Oh, Odin, I know where you hid your other eye." Okay, that's the internalization of the third eye, and that's the going within. So the chakra rules not just the third eye, but the spirit in that place. And that's what accesses those chakras. They're internalized, not external. So they're not part of here, if they're physically in the positions of your body, but it only exists in the spiritual, either in service to self or in service to others, and it's internalized. So it's by the heart. So those are in here, in this space. 3 below, 3 in this ecosystem. So it's a Vesica Pisces again. Only the Vesica Pisces now is not 1 dot and 1 dot. It's 3 chakras in the center. And you see that in some drawings where people are putting 3 chakras in that center point of the Vesica Pisces now, because they're realizing that. So your heart chakra expands into 3 chakras in the spiritual plane, in that same place. But you can only expand it by moving into the spiritual, either 4D and 5D, in your expansion of your consciousness, which you can start doing in the 3rd dimension. Okay, or being evil or being not evil. But you have to be ready to graduate. So, and then if you graduate physically into the 4D, they become more apparent to you there than they do down here. When you become unveiled, you're aware of them, and your heart. That's where, if you watch the show of during Christmas of the Grinch stealing Christmas and his heart growing 3 sizes, do you notice he adds 2 sizes to his heart? That's the expansion of his heart chakra 2 more times. That's the chakras being activated that are a part of that area that is the heart chakra. But that's 4D and 5D realization. That was a message in that little story for children that is not told to you, but people who know that his heart grew 2 sizes that day. That was the expansion of the chakra from a single chakra of the heart to 3 chakras in that positioning. That becoming now the love, which, because it's now one rules the spiritual and one rules, it's an attachment where you have an extension of self-serving and an extension. So there's the mind in that body, mind, spirit totality. So it's in that portion of the heart which separates and adds those 2 chakras that rule both now in the aspects, because now you're taking on a spirit body. So that chakra becomes the number 1 chakra for the spirit, right? So it rules that because it's internalized. So now it's internalized. So that's where everything goes back inside. So just because they're in the heart doesn't mean that they have a number of 2 and 4 or 4 and 6 or 3 and 5 around the 4, because you're internalizing now, coming back on the self to the self, and the chakra is there, but it's actually an expansion that's outside of the body this way and inside the body this way at the same time. This is where it gets really difficult for people to grasp in 3rd dimension. So because it's in both places at the same time, the numbers are not conducive with a placement in the physical plane here. I hope that explains that. I hope everybody understands that. If you guys don't, so yes, so you end up with 3 heart chakras. Cassie said, wow, 3 heart chakras. So you end up with 3 heart chakras. Yes. So the heart chakra expands, and literally, you also, if you look at your heart chakra now, you have masculine and feminine traits in that chakra. So you have feminine, it's already 3. You have feminine and masculine, and they're superimposed over each other and polarized to move in opposite directions within the heart chakra. That just expands because they expand to not just masculine and feminine, because you're moving away from that into the androgynous. So it expands now into the archetype of physicality and non-physicality, so that if you are in the physical plane, but in 4D and 5D, that's activating there, because now the physical plane becomes the astral, the physical plane becomes the non-physical body and moves into the spirit body. Do you see? So that becomes the new chakra points for the spirit body. being either in service to self or in service to others, because you're losing the physical body now, and that starts to wane, and the physical body goes away, and you become more of energy, and the chakra point there now expands to 3 chakras in the heart, but it's not in this physical plane because it can't be. It's only internalized. So once you move into that place, even in this physical body, you activate that, but it's only active in the spiritual, not in the physical. But it's there, or they are there. I hope that helps. Right? Let me continue. If you guys have any questions and you want me to give you the answers for that, let me know, because I'll continue with that line of thought. Let's see what Dawn comes up with as a question on there. And while if you guys have any questions, and then I'll stop and answer anything else to clarify anything that you still have questions about.
Could you tell me what you mean by the significator must become a complex? Ra, I am Ra. To be complex is to consist of more than one characteristic element or concept. 79.20 Questioner, I would like to try and understand the archetypes of the mind of this logos prior to the extension of the first distortion. In order to better understand that which we experience now, I believe that this is a logical approach. We have, as you have stated, the matrix.
Penny, yes. Okay. Brooke is also going through this. I don't know if she's still here. Brooke is also going through this, and she's like, why is my heart heavy? Why does it feel like it's hurting? Why does it feel like it's expanding? And I haven't told her yet. So if Brooke's here, she's going to get mad at me for not explaining that in detail to her. But that's what's happening. So you go through that heartache because you're leaving the physical plane and moving into the spiritual, and you're like, oh my God, I feel like my heart is going to, and you go to check the doctor, and they're like, there's nothing wrong with your heart. And you're like, okay, but I'm getting some weird, it feels like I'm like not having a heart attack. It's not beating wrong, but it's just Brooke is here. So she's probably going to get mad at me now because I haven't given her this information yet, knowing we were going to get here to talk about it today. And she's like, what are you doing? Are you upgrading my heart? And I'm like, no, you are. And I keep telling her that your higher self is tuning you up and upgrading your heart chakra. And she's like, well, I don't understand. And I'm like, you will. So what's happening is you start moving into that 4D and 5D plane. And because you're moving more into the spiritual, whether you do it in the evil side, in service to self, or in service to other side, you're starting to become unveiled and moving into your higher self, your true self, your spirit self, and you're starting to equate with that. And when you do that, that expands that, and you feel it in your heart. And you're like, what's going on? My heart is kind of bothering me. And doctors, if you go to the doctor, they'll check you and they go, you're fine. We don't know why. Maybe you had indigestion. And they go back to the physical plane and tell you that it had to be something physical. What's happening is it's activating, and your heart chakra is literally turning on now from crystallizing in this place, and it's actually activating the other 2 chakras, and you're feeling them now when you're not used to feeling them. And so when that's happening, it almost feels like pain in your heart, but you know that it's not dangerous, and you know that it's something that's new. And that's literally as those chakras are being activated in your heart, and your heart grows 2 sizes, in not physically, right? You don't get an enlarged heart, but in the spirit, in the chakra points, you gain 2 more chakras that literally, it's like a cell that is now expanding from a single cell to another cell. It's now literally your chakra is creating, the heart chakra creates 2 more chakras that appear in your astral self, in your higher self body, your energy body. But you feel it here because you're moving into that place already. You're becoming aware of it. So that's the expansion, and you can feel that in your heart, and you're just like, man, it feels like my heart's going to explode. It feels like there's pain there, but the doctors are like, you're fine. You might have indigestion, heartburn. And you're like, it's not heartburn. It's a different feeling. And the doctors can't explain it. Why? They don't know what it is. They're not going to be able to explain it to you. But that's what it is. Okay. And the only time I usually tell anybody is when they're going through it, only when they start to realize that it's an upgrade. And then they go, what does that upgrade mean? But if they don't ask that question, I don't just blurt it out. But because it's in here in the law of one and people are asking about it, Penny asked about it. Is that why I feel? Yes. And that's why I was like, Brooke's going to get mad at me because I didn't just tell her this. but she has been going through that, feeling that heart chakra expansion and going. And then she came to the conclusion, it must be an upgrade. And she's like, are you doing this to me? And I was like, I'm assisting, but I'm not the one doing it. You're the one that's doing it. I'm helping you with it, but you're the one that's doing it. And she's like, okay, that's cool. I'm getting that. It's a download. And so she was getting there naturally, but now she knows that what that was. So I hope you don't get mad at me, Brooke, and go, why didn't you tell me that? I could have known this, because we're supposed to allow that organically. But Penny posed the question. So I had to say, I decided to answer that because that meant that people were ready to hear that. So, right. Okay. So Reese said, let me see what Reese is saying here. Right. Since I got the what is that? Moldavite. Right. Okay. Since I got the Moldavite, it's like I've done a triathlon in my heart. Okay. Reese, you're going through the same thing. You're going through the same thing. You're moving into the true 4D and 5D. You're becoming unveiled. You're moving into your higher self, and you're expanding your heart chakra. You're going through the same process, Reese, that Brooke is going through and that Penny is starting to realize, and that she's quite possibly going through as well. Okay, just so you know. Tina, welcome. Risen Nation, welcome. Okay. Yes, and that happens to Brooke too. Brooke, look what Reese just said. After the heart chakra relaxes, the third eye aches. Yes, because where is the spiritual? I'm getting chills explaining it to you. I am literally getting chills throughout my entire body right now, both arms and down my back, literally to my legs. Because where is your spiritual body? But it begins with the higher self being in the third eye chakra. So as you expand the heart, you're expanding the upper chakras in your third eye. If you're in service to others, your third eye is opening wide, third eye wide, right? You guys know I have that shirt. I don't think you know I wear that shirt. It says third eye wide. Okay, so that doesn't mean third eye open. That means third eye wide. So as you expand your consciousness, you start seeing more through that third eye, because you're starting to place yourself here now, not here in these two eyes that belong to the third dimension. You start seeing more with your third eye. You start thinking more from your higher self perspective. So these are the cryptic things that I say to you when I tell you, as you're ascending, start paying attention to your thought processes, because you'll see that there is a concept that comes in that you think before your mind interprets it into language. That's you, and that's the true you in your higher self as the experiencer, as the co-creator, as your higher self, your soul that you reside in, that you actually reside in. And that's me helping to assist you into the realization that that's not a third person. My higher self is you're supposed to learn organically to stop saying he or she this, he that, and start going me. That's me. So my true self. So once you start to expand to that, it starts to expand your heart, and that kicks you higher. And then the third eye is also expanding and getting bigger because you're moving into your spirit body now, and that's what you're going to be seeing through for the rest of your existence. Is going to be, well, until there's the other expansion, which I can't talk about because it's in the 8th dimension. And then you're going to be in the totality body of the species. And so you're going to have that mind and that, so that's the expansion of the chakras into 24 chakras. So 9 to 12, and then to 24. And that's when you move into that higher place where your higher self is, before you go back to the one true creator. And then you'll have that another expansion from the planetary body to the galaxy, then to the universe, then to the multiverse, then to the creator. So each one of those is going to have the same shift upwards in the chakra package, and that's going to expand from 7 to 12 to 24 to 48 to 72 and upwards, as you are moving inwards and upwards at the same time, until you get back to the creator, which I believe is like 144 chakras. Don't quote me, because I would have to look, and then I wouldn't probably be able to give you the exact count, because we're not supposed to know that. But I'm believing that the best I can say is 144 chakras, because that's a multiple of 12. 12 times 12 is 144. It might even be 144,000, because the 144,000 we know about, the 144,000 souls that are supposed to be taken up to God are the 144,000 chakras that you become when you are in that place. And so when people think 144,000, they're like, there's not only 144,000 of us that are going to heaven, and the rest of you, 7.9 billion, are not going to get to go. That's just wrong. It's the expansion of your consciousness into that place, and your chakra points get very large. Okay, so let me see if you guys had any questions here, right? Right? Yeah. Chandra said. She said, no, it was Penny that said that. I'm sorry, because it moved the screen. Penny said, damn, I've been living with my herself for so many years. Damn, I need to listen to us more. Yeah, you need to start realizing that's all kind of hard to do, to go, that's me. I am that. And I'm not separate from that, because we try to internalize like the ego as a separate entity, and the conscience as a separate entity, and the consciousness is a separate entity. And that's where Ra is saying here that it has to become a totality. So what that means. You first have to become the totality of the ego is me, the conscience is me, the consciousness is me. We are that. We are one. Then you have to go, I am not just me here, I am my higher self. So first you go, my higher self, and you refer to your higher self as that one, him for me, or she for you if you're a female. She this, she that, she this, she that. You do that at first, and then you start saying we. You start seeing that there's two of you, we. As you're moving more into that personality, then you say me, I. That's the totality again coming into play. That's the expansion of the chakras, and you becoming a totality in a different place. First, you're here, you're separate, you become self-aware, you're separate, time is separate, archetypes are separate, and then you start to realize I am more than this. Now you're expanding into that totality. Where am I? I don't know, but I'm more than this. I'm maybe in another place. Oh, wait, there's a higher self. I'm somewhere halfway between this person and that person. And that's there. That's okay to be there until you start to realize, wait, that person is me. But am I going to change and lose me when I become that person? And then I'll work with you, and other people like me will work with you and say, no, you'll just have different memories, but you'll still be you, the same personality, because truly you're that person already. You're just veiled and don't remember it. And when you expand your consciousness and pull back the veil, you don't change that much. You remember more of your higher aspect. That's the only difference. So you're still you. You just are now you with the knowledge and access to the knowledge from that place. And that's what in you that changes. Your memory changes, not your personality. But your personality will kind of change, because then you're more solidified in being in service to others or in service to self when you move there. So your traits become a higher chakra trait. So you do kind of change a little bit, but it's not a whole personality. You don't change and become somebody completely different. You just remember who you are. Right. And Chandra said, love was just thinking that there's the 144,000. Yes, you were just thinking when I said, more importantly, it'll be the 144,000, because you'll have that many chakras when you expand your personality to that large, to the infinite vastness of infinity itself, to become one with the creator. Yeah. Right. And so, yeah, see, Brooke said, I have found myself and I feel more me than I ever have before. And that's the unveiling does that to you. So that's the part where I was saying you do change in some ways, because you're like, I'm more me than I ever was before. I forgot who I was. That's why we call it the forgetting. When you're down here and you're veiled, you forget who you are. Do you see? So once you equate yourself, wait, there's a higher self. And what does that mean for me? That's the beginning of the expansion. And eventually you say we, us, and then you say me. And once you do that and you pull yourself to reside in the me, that's me. Then you start to become unveiled. And all of a sudden you go, wow, this feels so good, man. I'm so totally completed now. I'm me. I'm back. And you're like, I was never really gone, but I just didn't know it. That was the forgetting. You don't know because you're not supposed to. You're supposed to organically discover yourself. And that's why we don't always reveal that to people until someone asks. And once someone asks, then we can tell you exactly what I just told you. But we have to wait for you to discover that, right? So is that Devika? Devika, love from India. Welcome, Devika. Right. So that there's once you get to that place, and that's what Ra's talking about, where you expand, the archetypes expand, and then it becomes a totality. So it's a new totality, which is inner and upper at the same time in the expansion, and that becomes more spiritual, either in the service to self or in the service to others portion of where you are, because that's where your true self for evil people and for good people resides, halfway through the sixth density. And the evil people can't go anywhere past that. But the people who are in service to self, service to others, can go past there. And then the people that are in service to self have to change to become in service to others to go past that point. And you can't cheat and pretend like you're going to do that. The universe is just not built that way. And you can't go, I'm going to pretend that so I can gain knowledge and go up there and take over the universe from God. It's a stopgap. It's a safe point for the creator so that the creator does not succumb to the creator's own whims of evilness. And that's why it was designed that way. And people that are down here that are evil, they don't want to believe that. They just want to go, no, that's not true. There's a God and then there's the devil and they're equal. That's only down here. Down here and internalized in you, you have the ego on one shoulder and the conscience, not the consciousness, but the conscience on the other shoulder. And that is two aspects of your whole. And the choice that you have to either be in service to self or in service to others. And they keep talking to you until you choose one or the other. And then they still keep talking to you, but you will hear one louder than you'll hear the other one as you're ascending up. And once you move back into your higher self, it's halfway through the sixth dimension, the ego will then, as you move past that point, be gone if you are in service to others. They will not have an ego anymore because you do not need it anymore. There's another type. There's another archetype that's above that, and I won't go into details of that to really screw your brain up down here because you're not really supposed to know about that. But there is another archetype that happens above that, but it's for the spiritual body moving into that higher self there. But there is another aspect, but it's not evil. It's not the ego. It is completely different. Okay. So because there is no more good and evil battle that goes on. So only when you're done being stuck in that place halfway through the sixth in the spiritual that you repent and become in service to others, will you then move up and the ego wanes completely. It's gone. There's no more ego talking to you and you move into the other aspects. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it does, right? Cassie said, I remember that when I was waking up, and it feels so damn good. It does feel good because as you start waking up, you start moving into your true self, in your higher self. And that's actually just the first anchor point. There's another higher self that is higher up than that, that you'll move into. And then there's the one above that you'll move into, but that's when you're moving back into the universal mind or the multiverse. And then there's the higher self, which is becoming one with the creator. And that one is, by that time, you've lost your single personality like you have down here completely. And you're a hive mind complex at the second level. You're a hive mind complex. By the time you get to halfway through the sixth dimension, you're no longer like, I will no longer be Leonard at all. Right. I will not even be Kelto anymore. I will be the Milky Way galaxy and the personification of that hive mind complex, which is currently going by the personification of Jesus, by the way. Okay. So the Christ consciousness, when Jesus said the way to heaven is through me, the Christ consciousness totality is the Milky Way galaxy. And then there's another one above that is the universe. And then there's another one above that's the multiverse. And there's another one above that is the creator of all of this. Okay. So everything shifts upward, and expands as it does so. So 7 chakras, 9 chakras, 12 chakras, 24, 48, 72, 144,000 exponentially you expand. Okay. So it's inward and outward at the same time. All right. So let me continue here, right? You're welcome, Penny. She said, thank you. This helps me so much. All you have to do is ask me questions, Penny, and I will answer any questions that you ask me when you ask them. I can't answer. I can't give you anything I can't give anything to anybody that they're not ready for. But if it's asked, even in a situation here, if I can answer it, it's because everybody in the world can hear it. Otherwise, I won't be able to answer it. So when you asked that question earlier, and I realized I would be able to actually physically say these words, that means that this entire totality, that is the human race, is currently in a position to actually understand everything that I just said. I couldn't have told you this a year ago, 5 years ago. I couldn't tell anybody this on this earth. That's the changes that have been made on this earth just in the last 5 years to be able to explain the upgrade of the chakras. I've been telling this to people individually. Soon people are going to expand and realize there's more chakras and realize that. And Jacqueline and I have talked about it, and she shows that some people know that there's 24 chakras. Right. And she's talking about that in the stuff that she's been writing that she hasn't published yet, that she knows that there's 24 chakras. Right. And I can tell you that I've known that, but I can't give the information out too much to the world, but I can individually tell you more about it. Just like when her and I talk individually or in a smaller group. But then what happens is we'll start talking in a way that you will be listening to us and you'll wonder whether we're even speaking English. I don't understand what they're saying. Are you guys talking English? Right? No, yes, we are. But we're just talking about something that you can't grasp right now. The same thing happened if you look at the Bible when Jesus was up on the mountain and he was praying, and two of his followers came up to tell him that the dinner was ready. And when they got there, they saw that Jesus was now dressed in a white robe, not the burlap looking khaki color robe, weirdly, right? But he was also talking to, I think it was Elijah and Daniel, or it was Moses and Daniel. He was talking to two people that were already dead, and they were standing there talking, and they said, Master, your food is ready. You can come down. There's plenty of food. You can bring your friends. And he said, no, they need to go. And they walked up the ladder into a cloud and disappeared. Climbed up a ladder into a cloud and disappeared. And on the walk back down, he looked at his disciples and said, listen, when we get back down there, don't tell anybody about anything that you saw there, please. He let them know about it. So they wrote it down. I think it was Matthew and John that were with him up there. They wrote it down and eventually published it. So we know it because it's in the Bible. But did not tell any of the other disciples that at all until after Jesus was dead. Why? You might want to contemplate that. Okay? Because they weren't ready for it, is the answer. Some of them weren't ready for it and they couldn't talk about it. The two of them were ready to see the expansion of that knowledge. That's why they were allowed to see that scene. But they couldn't tell anybody else because some of the people that were there in the 12 apostles were not ready to expand their consciousness to that yet. So he said, do not talk about this to anyone. And they did not. Later, it was published by Matthew and John and discussed throughout to all the other people, because they were ready for it. They had learned enough from Jesus before he died, and because of his sacrifice when he died, to expand their consciousness to then be able to access that information and understand it, or understand it more importantly. Okay, let's continue. So it's in the Bible, but when people hear it in the Bible, they go, I don't understand what that whole scene was about. And there's no explanation. You're supposed to learn what that is about. And Jacob's ladder is a little bit of a hint as to what they were doing and why there was a ladder that they climbed up, a rope ladder that they climbed up that went into a cloud and they disappeared. That was the ascension. So he was in two places at once. I can explain this to you. Jesus was in both in heaven and on earth at the same time. And there was witnessing him talking to souls that were residing there that came down into the plane of existence to be seen here. And because when he turned and they went up there into the cloud and Jesus turned and walked towards them, his clothes went from being shiny and white and glowing to tattered and normal, as if he stepped through a veil while he was talking to them. Okay? Because he was they were witnessing beings in the same place spiritually and physically at the same time, discussing the mission of what they were there to do. And then he turned around because they were expanded enough to be able to see that with their third eye and realized that. And he said, don't tell anybody about it. And as he did that, he switched back into regular human form because that's what everybody else needed to see him as. Okay. So that's what that was about. So it was literally them witnessing angelic beings and seeing them for their true self, because their third eye was expanded enough to where they were able to see with that third eye. And then when closer they got back to the rest of the team, the more he became solidified back in this reality as Jesus the man. And then they didn't talk about it to anybody, and they wrote it down and pondered it later. Let's continue.
Potentiator and the significator. I understand the matrix as being that which is the conscious, what we call the conscious mind, but since it is also that from which the mind is made, I am at a loss to fully understand these.
Right, and Peter's onto it right here. He's talking about it. One of the chakras that won't speak to the valve within your mind is the knowledge chakra. Took that out. So he's talking about the veiling. The veiling eradicates from you the knowledge of those chakras. That's what Peter's talking about. And so the expansion of your knowledge is what illuminates those chakras. When you illuminate your third eye, because you're expanding your mind or into the higher realm, you then all of a sudden expand the chakras as well and go, where did those come from? And it's just part of the awakening, the third eye wide. It's part of your awakening in your higher self, because you're moving into your spirit body now. Even though you're still physically down here, you're now equating yourself with residing up there. Once you do that, it expands your chakra. Once you start to do that, it expands the heart chakra into the extra chakras, which are internalized and externalized at the same time, because it's actually in another body that you're now moving into and realizing is there. And you feel it down here, as above, so below, as within, so without. You feel the chakras down here, but they don't actually reside here. They reside there, but you now reside there. So you become that totality of here and there at the same time. And eventually, when this body dies, you'll move into that plane of 4D in the physical, and have less of a physical body that we have now, and then in 5D in the physical, and have less as you're spiritually moving up into the spiritual body. Then the waning of the that's why it's the density becomes more dense in the spiritual, and the dimensionality fades away because your physicality fades away as you move into the more denser spirituality of the spirit body. And that's where the expansion of the chakras come into play in that realization. Shelley, welcome. I don't think I said, no, you just popped in. Welcome, Shelley. Okay, so let's continue.
3 terms, especially with respect to the time before there was a division between conscious and unconscious. I think it is important to get a good understanding of these 3 things. Could you expand even more upon the matrix of the mind, the potentiator?
Okay, I'm going to let Raw talk here real quick. I got to go in the other room and start turning on lights because it's getting dark here. So I got to turn on the lamp for my mom and close the curtains and turn on the lights in the other room. But I'll be listening. I'll come back. And if you guys have questions, say something and I'll come back. And we'll take maybe another question or two because it is getting later. It's almost 6 p.m. So I'm going to have to go in a couple of minutes. But I need to go turn the lights on first. So if you have a question, I'll cover that when I get back. So let me press play and I'll be right back in about 30 seconds.
And the significator, how they differ, and what their relationships are. Please. Ra, I am Ra. The matrix of mind is that from which all comes. It is unmoving yet is the activator and potentiation of all mind activity. The potentiator of the mind is that great resource which may be seen as the sea into which the consciousness dips ever deeper and more thoroughly in order to create, ideate, and become more self-conscious. The significator of each mind, body, and spirit may be seen as a simple and unified concept. The matrix of the body may be seen to be a reflection in opposites of the mind, that is, unrestricted motion. The potentiator of the body then is that which, being informed, regulates activity. The matrix of the spirit is difficult to characterize since the nature of spirit is less modal.
Right? Peter says that's the concept of Jacob's ladder, where both the physical plane, right? So the spiritual and the physical plane, that is the representation of the Jacob's ladder and in the Bible, right? So the Jacob's ladder is the 33 runs. There's 33 runs in the ladder, 33 runs in your vertebrae, 33 years of Jesus before the crucifixion. So the expansion of your knowledge is going up all of your chakras and moving up into the next plane of existence, into the spiritual. As you're moving into the spiritual realm, you're starting to reside in the spiritual body. And that's the expansion of those two chakras in that place. And then you start to compress. This place starts to go away and you start getting more dense in the spiritual body, right? All right, so let's continue with what he's talking about here.
The energies and movements of the spirit are, by far, the most profound, yet, having more close association with time/space, do not have the characteristics of dynamic motion. Thusly one may see the matrix as the deepest darkness and the potentiator of spirit as the most sudden awakening, illuminating, and generative influence. This is the description of archetypes 1 through 9 before the onset of influence of the co-creator or sub-logo's realization of free will. 79.21 Questioner. The first change made then for this extension of free will was to make the information or make the communication between the matrix and potentiator of the mind relatively unavailable one to the other during the incarnation.
Do you see? So to get back to Cassie's question of before, why are there only 7 now? So to be in this place and to be the veiling, you have to limit the spiritual body. So you have to diminish the chakras and the chakra points to be down here in the physical plane. And you can't be aware of that until you expand into that plane of existence, right? So I think I'll stop right here with this, and we'll go back a few questions. So let me see exactly where we are here. Let me do that because we're hitting another question here. I'll find out exactly what question we're on.
Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. We would perhaps rather term the condition as relative association with time/space, do not have the characteristics of dynamic motion. Thusly one may see the matrix as the deepest darkness and the potentiator of spirit as the most sudden awakening, illuminating, and generative influence. This is the description of archetypes 1 through 9 before the onset of influence of the co-creator or sub-logo's realization of free will. 79.21 Questioner.
Okay, so we're at 79.21. Let me write this down, and then I'll back up probably 2 questions at least, and start there because we'll have to get back up to speed. Right. But if you guys have any questions, please fire them at me now while I'm typing this. While I'm typing this out, so I can get that in, I'll just put 79.20 and then I'll back up from that. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'll pop them in now so we can cover them, because otherwise I got to leave in a couple of minutes because I got to get my mother in the shower and then get dinner. Right. So hopefully that, and then we'll cover it more next Friday when I do back up. But so the expansion of your consciousness helps you to understand, more importantly, not understand, because it's out of the physical into the spiritual, that place. So the Jacob's ladder, the Christ within, all of that expansion of the Christ oil and all of that, and the potentiation becomes the potentiator for you to be introduced to your higher self. And once you do that, then that's where you start moving towards becoming your true self. And that, as you become closer to I am that higher self, that veiling that you have becomes less and less. And then when you become unveiled, you don't realize that you're unveiled until all of a sudden something hits you and you're like, wait a minute, right? This is weird. I'm like completely different, but the same. And I feel really good about where I am and who I am. And that's when you realize you were actually you were already unveiled, but you just didn't realize that you were unveiled. And then you learn that you have access to everything when you focus on different things. I was just talking to Brooke about this last night when she said, well, if you know like everything that you were in different lives, then you have all those memories. I'm like, yes, I do, but I don't access them all the time. And she said, why not? And I said, imagine your life now and you have memories of everything that you've done in your life. She's like, right. And I'm like, that's everything that you make your decisions of your personality and all your traits by. She goes, right. I said, now add another entire existence and all of those memories from a separate entity that you are not currently, but you used to be. Put all of those in your mind right now and then figure out who you are. Which one of those memories are you? Which one of those personalities are you? You will start to take on the traits of both of those beings, who you were in the past and who you are now. So you have to be careful who you're accessing in the past, because if you access somebody who was a little bit more in service to self or a little bit more violent than you and a lot more veiled than you, you will take on that personality in this life because you're accessing it and putting it there in your memory. So that means that all of the emotions, all of the thoughts, all of everything that you have currently for the individual that you are, you're going to become as well. And you're going to find a balance now, a totality that is between those two. So now if you throw in another personality and another personality and another personality, then they're all going to be there. So you either have a split and you start giving those personalities the ability to think independently, and then we call that schizophrenia, multiple personality disorder. And then you believe that they are individuals, and then you argue with yourself when it's actually just you in different aspects of you, because that was you in a different lifetime, but you're unaware of that because you don't see yourself as yourself. You see that as a completely different, separate entity, and you take on that personality sometimes. And that's part of what's going on with people that are schizophrenic. They're just confused, and their ego will separate those into those. And psychology in this earth doesn't have the wherewithal to go, it's okay to integrate those personalities, but you have to separate yourself at the same time. You are this personality here, and those are personalities you used to be. But the scary thing is you still are, because there is no time when you get outside of time. So you still are those aspects, just as valid as you are currently here, but in a different reality. So that gets confusing. So if you don't have the right training and you start pulling those memories in to yourself, you don't realize the ramifications of that personality, because it's you. It knows it's you. It is that personality. Whoever you were in that past life, you were that. So if you then reside in that, move over to that, that's what happens when the personality comes through. The same thing happens when you're channeling someone and you give access to the person you're channeling to talk through you. You're moving out of the way. So when you're doing that with your own personalities, not a foreign personality, it moves in and becomes you. Do you see? It's the same thing that's happening. You're channeling. So that's why they try to say that channeling is not legit, because channeling is schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is channeling. You're just channeling you from the future, the past, or somewhere in between. Okay? So that's confusing if you're in psychology and you're locked into this matrix. You're like, no, that's not what it is. It's disorder in the brain, and that's all it is. And those people are crazy and need to be on drugs. No, they're not. They just need somebody to teach them that it's okay. That's just them, and you need to tell them to go back to where they are, and you need to focus on yourself here and your higher self that's up there, and not those selves, because those selves are from a different time and place, but they are just as much you. And that's why you know everything. That's why you have all their memories when you tap into them. You're just doing it in here instead of leaving this body and going there into that body. Okay. Yes. Shelley said, let me put this up on the screen. Yes. So choosing a shorter lifespan gives more opportunity for experience more and more, and held the soul for growing if unveiled. Yes, but the more of the reason for the shorter lifespan is the recycling. It doesn't give you more expansion of your consciousness, because you die faster. So that process to where we went from living for 1,000 years down to living for an average of 30 years, and now we're living for an average of 86 years, was done by evil, by propagating the having an affinity for bellicose. So the nature, that's the fall. When we fell and became the beast, the more that we are, the further away from light we are, the shorter the lifespan of the human race, because we're more murderous and we kill each other. So we don't live, we live for today, we live for ourselves, and we're conquering and killing and raping and pillaging. So it becomes a harsher life. So the more we become spiritual, the longer we will live. Okay. So when the veiling happened, our lifespan went from immortality to a mortal life, got shorter, became a thing. And then when evil people got control of the matrix, they made the earth fall again. And we went from living for 1,000 years when we were very spiritual beings on this earth to living for 30 years when we were locked into the matrix and we were living in the flesh. Okay. And we are returning to spirituality. People are becoming more spiritual and less religious on the earth day by day. The religions will tell you it's the devil turning you away from the churches. But Jesus or any other prophet will tell you that it's the way they were trying to teach you to begin with, and that those people corrupted that and turned it into a religion. Okay? Jesus was mad about the Hebrew religion at the time and was testing them because God didn't give them 6,000 laws. He gave them 10. And they turned them into 6,000, and they were wrong for doing that. And they went after Jesus and decided that they needed to get rid of him because it was good for business to get rid of him. Okay? The same thing can be said for the modern day. The religions, the church was usurped. The Christianity, the following the way of Christ was usurped, taken control of by evil people and turned into a control mechanism where they don't teach you. And I'm a minister. Okay, I'm a minister in the Christian religion and in the Catholic religion as a knight. I'm a minister, so I'm not coming from a place of atheism where I hate Christianity. I am a Christian minister. I'm also a Druid minister. I am a Merlin. But they've been corrupted, and they don't teach you the ascension anymore. They teach you, wait here, Jesus is coming back in a bus to get everybody. They don't teach you how to get to heaven. They say, come in and sit in our seats and we'll teach you that, but they never do. The curriculum is designed in what they use the Bible for, is designed to tell you you're supposed to have a relationship with God or a relationship with Jesus. And what's that relationship? Ask your pastor that. What's that relationship? In any religion that you're in, what is the relationship that I'm supposed to have? And if they're not telling you this is what you're supposed to do to graduate from this place and go to heaven, and it has something to do with physicality, you need to come to church, and you need to be a good person, and you need to what? Pay a tithing to the church so we get richer and don't have to do any work, so that you do it for us for free, and you'll be rewarded in the afterlife. Well, what reward will I get in the afterlife? Well, if you strap a bomb on and go and blow those people up, we'll give you 77 virgins. Do you see? It becomes more zealotry. So when you actually question that authority from them, they'll say, well, it's about faith. Now they jump back to faith. You have to have faith in God. What does that entail, Pastor? What does that mean? How am I going to get into heaven by having just faith? What about faith will get me into heaven? Make them. Start thinking for yourself. Make them tell you the answers to that. Make them do that. And then you'll find a pastor or a priest or whatever you call them in the religion that you're in, elder, whatever they're called in the religion that you're in. You will find the ones that are truly about ascension will all of a sudden look around and talk to you individually. How about we get together later and we'll talk about this? Because they don't want the word to get back to their bosses that they're going to tell you what you need to know. And then when you start talking, they're going to ask you what you know, and you're going to find individually they're going to start counseling you in a different way than you hear them in church. They become a lot more like me because they think that way. But they know that they can get in trouble, but they're still going to help you because they are in service to others. And they know that at the top, the church is not. It is self-serving, and they know that, but they'll never tell you that because you don't need to know the answer to that. Because if you go to church, you will still get to heaven. But if you get caught up in the semantics, you'll just go to church every day of your life and never learn anything. And you'll go because you go, and that's what you think you're supposed to do over and over. And in your deathbed, you'll be like, I didn't learn anything from the church. I just learned to keep coming back to the church. You'll get that realization at some point, and you'll stop going to church. That's how people get turned off to religion, because they think that the religion is not teaching them what they want, but they don't realize they're supposed to then learn the spirituality. And that is what is in my book, The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways. And the quote on the back of my shirt is, religion recruits you, spirituality waits for you to find it. Because that's the truth of what's going on here. Religion recruits you. Spirituality is waiting for you to find it. These people in history, all of those prophets from every religion in history, were teaching you spirituality, not religion. And it was turned into a religion. And the religions have been corrupted to not teach you that spirituality anymore. So you have to realize that and come to that realization. It's there for you to see in those religions, but they're not telling you and teaching you where it is in their religion, that it's there. They give it to you in little, and we don't know what that means, but it's supposed to be for the enlightened. Well, how do I become enlightened then? That's what you should be asking. Well, it's not for you. You have to have faith, and eventually it'll unlock, but only in the time way in the future. That time's now, and that person is you. When you start thinking for yourself and start finding your true higher self, you'll unlock the same information, and you'll actually understand what these prophets were telling you and what they were trying to tell you when you read it in that Talmud. You'll go, wait a minute, this means something different than the priest has been telling me. I think this means this. And then if you tell the priest, if they're self-serving, they're going to go, you need to stop reading that on your own. If you tell the priest and the priest says, let's get together later and we'll talk, that's the priest that's going to go, you're absolutely right. But these people don't know that. And they're going to be more honest with you about that. When I was in the hospital, they asked if I wanted to have clergy come in and talk to me. And I said, yeah. And they said, any denomination? I said, I'm a minister, a Christian minister. So you can just give me somebody that's any denomination. I'll be okay with that. This woman came in and we started talking. And when she realized that I was awake, she then let me know how much she was awake. And we started talking about the reality about what's going on here. And she looked around and then looked at me and said, this is the Kali Yuga. And I looked at her and said, this is the Kali Yuga. No one else in the room would have remembered that or understood that, because there's a pretty good possibility they were all Christians. So they wouldn't understand what the Kali Yuga meant. The Kali Yuga means time of troubles, time of tribulation, the end times. Okay. Why is this the end times? Doesn't mean the world's going to come to an end and we're all going to die. It's the end times because it's the end of the rule of the devil over the earth. It's the time of tribulation, the time of trouble. It is the time of most stress because the devil is desperate to keep everybody veiled now. And that time is ending, and the reality that is here is going to change. The structure of this societal structure that we are currently living in is going to change between now and 2050 drastically. Governmental systems are going to be overhauled. It's going to change. Okay? Because the devil shall rule the earth for a time, that means a beginning, a middle, and an end. The time is over. Right now, what's happening is the echoes of that time are still echoing here. It's already done. The trumpets have got done playing the tune. It's now echoing through the ionosphere, and that's all that it's doing. It's waning and waning and waning, and you're not going to be able to hear the devil anymore. That's what's happening here. So this is the Kali Yuga. This is the time of troubles. This is the end times. But it doesn't mean we're all going to die. It means that the face of the earth is going to change. And you hear this in all the Bibles where they talk about, and I will take up the earth and I will make the new heaven and the new earth. Because that's what we're doing here, is we're changing the face of the earth by changing ourselves and upgrading ourselves, and it's changing the earth drastically. And people are realigning themselves in a renaissance that is a spiritual renaissance, not a religious renaissance. And everyone is going to change the face of the earth because it can't be stopped anymore. That's what's going on here. Okay. I know, Brooks, I love this live. Thank you so much, Leo. I have learned a lot, and no, I'm not cranky at you, right? She's not cranky at me for not explaining it to her because she didn't ask me the right question. I tell people that all the time. You have to ask me questions, and if you start asking me the right questions, I'll give you those answers. But you have to ask the questions. It has to be organic. Penny asked the question, and because I knew that I could say it, when she asked it, I was like, okay, I can go down this road. That means that everybody who's going to hear this on the earth is capable of this knowledge now. When I did this session, the last time I did this session in 2018, I couldn't discuss what I'm discussing right now. Just in 2018, and we're in 2025. That's how much has changed on this earth between then and now. A crazy amount. Okay, it's 10 after 6. I am going to have to go. I hope that you guys, that I didn't, right? I know. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Cassie's wrapping me, right? Thank you, Leo, for tonight. I love you, family. Have a wonderful weekend. Cassie's like, Leo, wrap. You got to go take care of your mom. Thank you. Gotta go. All right. I love you guys. Right. So that's funny right there. She's like, dude. All right. So I love you guys. Have a great night. Right. I will pick back up a few questions prior so that we can cover this again next week. So if you got here late and you don't have time to go back, I would suggest go back and listen to the live again, because this live was all about the ascension and the expansion of consciousness into 4D and 5D for real in the physical and in the spiritual. And then we will continue this discussion next Friday. And I hope that some of you will have more questions on the Wednesday about what we're talking about here, and we can discuss this more there. So for those of you who won't be on the discussion on Wednesday on the Zoom call, which is not on the air or recorded, you guys will miss out on a conversation that might lead past what we will be talking about next week here on the Law of One. If you're not in the Law of One chat, contact somebody that is, and we'll get you into the Law of One chat. In the group right now, Cassie's here and Peter's here. I know for sure Cassie is an admin. I'm not sure about Peter. He should be an admin. If he's not, I don't know if Brooke is an admin, and I don't know if Penny's an admin. So they may not be able to get you in, but Cassie could. But you could get a hold of any of them, and they could tell Cassie or myself, hey, this person wants in the group. Please bring them into the group. It's on Messenger, and it's where we have conversations when we're not on air here, and it's about what we talk about everything in there. And so you can ask any question, and there's people in there all year round, all 24 hours a day, because they're all around the world, and somebody will answer you. And if not, as soon as somebody wakes up, they'll give you an answer or help you to guide you in some way. And then you also have access to the Zoom contact to come into the Zoom to ask more questions, but you also have contact to a bunch of us in there to pick our brains about anything spiritual that you want to talk about. And we do work with individuals individually and in groups, so you guys can do that if you like. Okay, I got to go. I got to get mom in the shower because now it's 6:15, and then I got to get us some dinner. I love you guys. Have a great night. I'll either see you in the chat, or I'll see you on Wednesday, or I'll see you back here on next Friday, or you're listening around the world in the MP3 broadcast, and I won't see you because you're not engaging in conversation. You're just listening to the podcast, which is okay. But you guys can find me all over the internet. And if you're listening to me on an app, you have contact through that app to my podcast to send me a message. And if not, look me up on Facebook, look me up on YouTube, both Leonard O'Neill with my name. Look me up on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. I'm on almost every platform where I post reels every day. So you can message me either in a reel, and I check it when I get notifications, or you could message me on that platform where I have the reels. And then if you want to talk to me, we can find a platform that we can converse, even if it's just through email, and I can send you the link to have you go to the Zoom class to ask questions, or communicate with me directly, or other people that you might be more inclined to, because if you come in and get exposed to the different people that we have in our group, the different personalities, you might resonate with someone like Peter or Cassie or Rick or Brooke or some of the other people that we have in the group, Penny even, some of the other people that we have in the group that can help guide you. That there's a bunch of us there, and that's what we do. So if that's the case, and you don't, then you might in the Zoom call meet other people that you might resonate with, or get Messenger, the app, and then be able to come in there to communicate with people there to find out who you might resonate with, because you may not resonate with me. You might resonate better with one of their personalities to be more of a guide to you, to help you with the stuff. And that's why we represent different personality types, so that we can then do that, because we all are individuals, and so are you, right? There's 7 different ways people learn on this planet. Why is that? 7 different chakras. Okay. 7 different ways that are archetypes that people learn. So one of us you'll resonate with, and you'll be able to then have that person who is closer to your archetype help you in developing who you are. And you may shift to different people. And I always suggest that you should do that. You should be listening to more than one person telling you any information about the ascension, so that you round out your character, round out yourself, and don't limit yourself to any belief system, that you actually are more open-minded and question everything. All right, guys, I love you guys. Have a great night. I will see you guys wherever, whenever. This has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on when in the world you are tuning into the show.